and welcome to episode 2 here of RaiderZone, the podcast, a part of Raider Student Media, the sports team. We run this show. I'm Will Brianza, the sports director, currently sitting in my apartment with a bunch of boxes in front of me as I get ready to move into a house for the first time in my life. Let's allow my panel of Raiders to introduce themselves and tell me where you guys are at. So, Riley, I'll start with you.
I'm Riley Sullivan, and I'm in the Oasis, which is one of the most coveted rooms in the Sigma Alpha Epsilon house. So, pretty cool, man.
Love it. Jacob.
I'm Jacob Butar, and I am sitting in the conference room of the Honors Program house.
Brendan.
I'm Brendan DeVinny, and I'm in the luxurious townhouses across from Sigma Nu, Will, so living the life.
And Alex.
I am Alexander Patron, and currently I am in the pink bubblegum room of my house, aka my bedroom. That is very pink. You guys might not be able to see it, but very pink.
Oh, it is quite the pink room, that's for sure. And we are ready for some more sports talk. So let's jump right into it. And we'll start with Major League Baseball. The season's ending, but that just means it's time for the other part of the season, which is the off season. But we'll talk about the World Series first. The Dodgers take down the Rays 3-1 in Game 6 to win their first World Series championship since 1988. They use a 2-run sixth to take the lead and never look back. So, Brendan, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on what everybody is talking about right now? Kevin Cash pulls Blake Snell in the 6th inning when he allowed 0 runs, 2 hits, and struck out 9 batters on just 73 pitches. Was this a mistake by Kevin Cash, Brendan?
For sure. A game that you needed to win and keep the season alive, keep your title hopes alive. You have your best starting pitcher out there on the mound, and then you have Mookie Betts, who I think is the best player in baseball right now, stepping up to the plate. You got to keep him in there. Tim Kurkjian, ESPN baseball guru, after the game said that he feels like there's the feel for the game is not existent in the game anymore. Like, you need to be able to trust your starting pitcher. Don't turn to analytics. And even if you look to analytics with that decision, it didn't even back up pulling Blake Snell out of the game. Mookie Betts doesn't even have a great track record of hitting off Blake Snell. So, I truly believe he would have left Snell in there. It would have stayed a 1-0 game for Tampa Bay. It's definitely going to haunt Kevin Cash the rest of his managerial career, and I don't think hurt Tampa Bay next year, but it's definitely a blemish on his resume.
Jacob.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is what I hate about baseball analytics. I mean, it's an eye test. Blake Snell's out there. He's pitching the game of his life. I mean, 9 strikeouts on 73 pitches. That's so impressive, and it's a do-or-die game. And really, if you think about it, Blake Snell's not going to be pitching until next season because there's no way he's pitching Game 7. So if it were up to me as a manager, I'd be pitching the guy until he's exhausted or until he's actually showing signs of not doing good anymore. When you have a guy out there that's that in the zone in a do-or-die game and has put you in the spot to actually win the game, there's no reasoning to take him out in that situation, and the Rays paid the price because of it.
Alex, how do you feel about Kevin Cash? I think it's Mike, Alex. Your microphone.
I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
Oh boy. All right. I kind of agree with everyone saying. It was major loss, major slip off. It was like they had it and then just kind of slipped from their fingers. It's kind of unfortunate. But.
And I agree. I mean, Blake Snell, a Cy Young winner. I don't get it. I wouldn't dog analytics completely. There have been some good things found using baseball analytics. I mean, look at the Oakland A's Moneyball. That's not a movie without analytics. But there's definitely, when it comes to pitching, it's one of the tougher things because I think they've babied pitchers a lot since the mid-2000s until today. And I think there's guys that are against analytics. Yes, they use analytics to better their arm, but they're against once you hit 100 pitches, you're done. And in this case, he was at 73. He had just given up a hit. Yes, he gave up a hit, but it was the second hit of the game he gave up. I'm not a fan of it. It's going to be a game that Kevin Cash remembers for the rest of his life. Do they go on and win Game 7? I don't know. The Dodgers are a really good team, so you can't say it was the deciding factor in the series because they were already down 3-2. But you can definitely say it was a deciding factor in Game 6. And it's definitely a deciding factor in not getting you to Game 7. A play I didn't like, and I feel bad for Blake Snell because that was his game to lose, not his bullpen's game to lose. And it's unfortunate for him, but it's all said and done. The Dodgers, World Series champions, guys. It took 4 years of making it 3 times for them to finally get it done. What does this mean for the Dodgers organization, Jacob? I'll start with you.
I feel it's sort of redemption in a way. They should have won the World Series a couple years ago when they played the Astros, if you think about it, because of the whole cheating scandal. So in a way, it's redemption from that whole mess. But also, I think it shows that like the high payroll is actually going to work out because they paid so many guys to come in and win the World Series, and they would never do it until this year. So it's kind of like rewarding to have that high payroll and finally actually win a game because, in my opinion, if they don't win this year, they might have to start thinking about blowing up the team because you can't have that high of a payroll all the time and not win. So it's a good thing for them to win this World Series for sure.
Alex, what does this World Series mean for the Dodgers organization?
I definitely think it's gonna boost their confidence. Like everyone's saying, they've had it like for the past couple of years, and it's just they've like missed it in one way or another. So I think just this year might be a game changer for the Dodgers, that they might actually see a little bit of victory for once. So I think this last game is definitely going to give them a little boost of confidence for the future.
Awesome. And Brendan?
Yeah, they've put a lot of money into that roster for the past 5 or 6 years. What, like Jacob said, whether or not they can keep those guys with the payroll that they have, it's going to be real interesting to see over the off season. Are definitely World Series contenders next year, and I think for a few more years, if they can keep Mookie Betts around, Jock Peterson around, Corey Seager. I mean, you look up and down every position that they have all-stars at every position. So there's just a lot of money that they have to be able to hand out. It's probably not going to be able to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see who stays, who sticks around to keep them in contention.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be difficult. We'll get into free agency starting here in a little bit, but Justin Turner and Jock Peterson, 2 guys that are already listed as free agents, so it's going to be interesting to see if they hold on to them. But after seeing this season play out and the postseason, 3 names, when you're talking about field positions that you want to hold on to, Mookie Betts, you've already secured him. He's there for the long haul. But Cody Bellinger, and I'd say Corey Seager, hasn't been the same Seager since the ACL tear a few years back, but the postseason says anything. It says Seager's back, baby. And quite the postseason he had, and the World Series he had. A lot for that team. Mookie Betts, the same, coming in his first year in LA. And then obviously you want to keep as many pitchers as you can. You have a really good pitching staff and bullpen, but you really want to keep guys like Kershaw and Buehler and Urias together. I mean, 3 big names that helps you get there. But yeah, when you're talking about field positions, you can build around a Betts, a Bellinger, and a Seager. Turner's aging. You might let him walk. Peterson, I mean, you have guys. You have A.J. Pollock, who's an underrated backup outfielder who could be moving in. You have Chris Taylor. You have guys that could fill in for Peterson. Yeah, he's a bigger bat, but you have great fielders behind him that can fill in. But it's almost to the point where Bellinger, Betts, and Seager are irreplaceable at this point. So moving on, the Chicago White Sox, a team who were really fun to watch during this 60-game season. Their young bats lit it up, and their ace, Lucas Giolito, was a lot of fun to watch through the new hitter this year. So Didn't know if we'd get to see one of those in a 60-game season, but Giolito made sure it happened. The White Sox, they let go of Rick Renteria, and they signed Tony La Russa to be their new manager. La Russa has a career coaching record of 2,728 wins and 2,365 losses. He has 3 World Series rings in 1989 with the A's, and then in 06 and 11 with the Cardinals. He did manage the White Sox from 1979 to 1986 and is now returning to managing after 9 years. Was this a good signing by the White Sox? Brendan, I'll start with you.
I mean, on paper, you look at Tony La Russa, Hall of Fame manager. You're automatically going to be excited if you're a White Sox fan.
Mm-hmm.
But he hasn't managed since 2011. That's going to be a decade when the 2021 season rolls around. I mean, that's just a long time to be out of the game. The talent is now different. The personalities of the guys in the locker room is now different than a decade ago. Is he going to be able to, control that, manage that, get his group of guys who are some of the most electrifying personalities? I mean, Tim Anderson, Mr. Batflip. Is he going to be able to manage a personality like that? I'm not sure. It's going to be really interesting to see. He's a great baseball mind. I mean, that's for sure. So White Sox have that winning for him. It's great that you get a lineup like that and now a really good manager put together. They didn't have that with Renteria, but it's just the little things that I'm kind of worried about.
Alex, will La Russa work out in his second tenure in Chicago?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Brendan on this one. I mean, 10 years, especially in
All right, we'll get back to Alex. I think it cut out for a second. Jacob, your thoughts while we wait for Alex to join on the La Russa signing.
Yeah, I agree with Brendan. It's not a horrible signing. I mean, if you're a White Sox fan, you're definitely going to be interested in it because he has so much success. But the man's 76 years old, and he's been out of baseball for 10 years. So the game's evolved. I don't necessarily know if younger guys on the team are going to want to listen to a 76-year-old. And also, too, how long is he really going to be there if he's 76 years old? We can't be expecting the guy necessarily, if, say, the White Sox continue to have success, he's not going to be there for like 10 years. He's probably going to be there for around 2-4 years maybe just because of his age. So it's just a short-term hire. I think it's more of he's trying to build the culture in Chicago to a winning culture, and somebody else is going to take over for it. But it's not a horrible signing, but I think they could have possibly done better.
Yeah. Alex, you're back on. What are your thoughts on the La Russa signing?
So sorry about that, guys. A little technical difficulty. But
all good.
I'm in agreement with everything. It's just 10 years, things change and people change. I mean, there's no doubt about it that La Russa, very successful in baseball. I mean, you look at his wins, you see that he has 3 World Series rings, and there's no doubt about it that he's successful. But just 10 years out of the game, he's definitely going to be a little rusty. There's going to be a lot of challenges. There's going to be a lot of things for him to learn, even though he's been so experienced. So I'm not doubting that he can't do it because he obviously has an knack for baseball and he has talent. He's done so many good things with it. But I just think it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of pain. It's going to be a challenge for him to this new year.
Yeah, and I agree. It sounds more like it was I apologize hire. So the guy that actually let the GM fire him back in 1979 or 1986, is still a part of the staff and was in on this signing. And a lot of people in baseball feel like it's just like they never wanted to fire him. Don't know why we let him fire him in 1986, but now we're going to give him another chance, which good for you guys. You're mending a relationship, but it's 9 years, like you guys said, out of the league, just about a decade. And the White Sox are a team that kind of are a full roster of what looks like baseball is becoming, which is more exciting. The youth is adding big bats, flashy plays, and more personality to baseball than some of the humbleness you'll see back in the day. There's definitely more personality in the sport of baseball, and it's going to be weird to see La Russa control that. La Russa, old, and hasn't coached a new age baseball team. This might stress him out more than he thinks. Despite the White Sox being a good team, there's a lot of personalities that comes with this job, and you're also playing in an AL Central division who is a division full of mediocrity. So you all are in the hunt at all times, and it makes it even more stressful because who's going to win the division? The Indians kind of just sold out. They let a lot of players go, so it might be a Twins-White Sox division next year, but it's going to be different, and it's going to be interesting to see how he controls it. And I agree, it can't be a long-term signing. He's not going to be here for 10 years coaching to the age of 86. So we'll see where it takes him. Hopefully the White Sox found their guy because they've been building quite a team through the farm system, and it'd be nice to see them succeed, not going out there and signing big contracts, but doing it the right way through scouting. So that will take us to free agent power rankings are released by ESPN. Yes, this is going to be the talk of the MLB for the next few months, free agency. So this is where the free agent power rankings stand as of right now, with their position, the team they played for last year, and the contract they're expected to get. So coming in at first is catcher JT Realmuto from Philadelphia. ESPN projects him to get a 5-year, $110 million contract at the age of 30. I was surprised to see 5-year, $110, but when you're considered the best catcher in baseball, that's the kind of numbers you're going to get. Coming in at number 2, George Springer, outfielder, Houston, expected to get 4-year, $108, according to ESPN. Number 3, DJ LeMahieu, middle infielder, played a little bit of shortstop, but is written down as a second baseman for the Yankees. 4-year, $88 million is his projected contract. 4th, Trevor Bauer, starting pitcher Cincinnati, projected to get 1 year, $31 million, and there's a reason for that. They say if Bauer wants the long-term deal, he's got to expect to make only about $25 million. If he wants the $30 million max contract, he's going to go year to year because he's a pitcher. So they're projecting gets the 1 year, $31, but there's rumors 4-year, $100 million is also on the table for a guy like Bauer. And this is all projections again. None of this is, we bid on Bauer for 4-year, $100 million. This is just projections by ESPN. 5th, Marcell Ozuna, outfielder, Atlanta, 3-year, $60 million. Marcus Semien from Oakland, the shortstop, 3-year, $54 million. Coming in at 7, starting pitcher from New York, the Mets, Marcus Stroman, 3-year, $51 million. And 8th from the Giants, the baseball Giants, starting pitcher Kevin Gausman, 3-year, $48 million. And 9th, relief pitcher Liam Hendricks from Oakland, 3 years, $42 million. And rounding out the top 10 is Nelson Cruz, the outfielder / DH for the Minnesota Twins. He's expected at the age of 39 to get 2-year, $40 million. I mean, when you're still hitting out that many bombs at that age, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're still producing. Other big names to watch out for in free agency that just didn't crack the top 10. Masahiro Tanaka from the Yankees, Justin Turner from the Dodgers, Charlie Morton from the Rays, James Paxton from the Yankees, Brad Hand from the Indians, Colton Wong from the Cardinals, Michael Brantley from the Stros, Didi Gregorius from the Phillies, Yadier Molina from the Cardinals. It's going to be interesting to see if he leaves the Cardinals. Kirby Yates from the Padres, Cesar Hernandez from his 1-year stint in Cleveland, Anderson Simmons from the Angels, Carlos Santana from the Indians, Corey Kluber from the Rangers, Ken Giles from the Blue Jays, and Jock Peterson we talked about during the World Series. He is a free agent from the Dodgers. So guys, what are a guy you're looking to sign with a new team? What landing spot could you see them going at? Brendan, we'll start with you. Pick a guy or two that you could see leaving their team from last year, and where could you see him going? Yeah,
so looking at my favorite pitcher in baseball, Trevor Bauer, I would assume that he was going to go to a team that needs some help with starting pitching, and one of those is the Marlins. They're going to make some offers. Their starting pitching staff is below average. It was their lineup that helped them get to the postseason this year. But the Yankees have been in talks of trying to want to get him to bolster that starting lineup. I've heard him talk on his vlogs that he'd love to be a Yankee as well. And also George Springer, native of that New England area. Wouldn't be surprised if he'd go to the Mets. They need some help in their lineup as well, and they have the money now to do so with new ownership. So wouldn't be surprised if he'd go to New York and Queens.
Jacob, a couple guys you see leaving, going to new places.
So I agree with Brendan. I think Trevor Bauer is most likely going to leave Cincinnati. I wrote down a few teams for him. I think that I could see him going to the White Sox, the LA Angels, the San Francisco Giants, or the Minnesota Twins. All teams that kind of need pitching help. I think the Angels especially should go after him because they go after every single infielder, outfielder known to man, but they never boost that starting pitching. Maybe Trevor Bauer can be the guy that takes them over the top. Some other guys I chose. I think George Springer, I could see him going to the Cincinnati Reds, honestly. Bring in a powerful bat to the Reds, bring in kind of a veteran leadership to the Reds since he has that World Series experience. I think that he can definitely help the Reds out a lot. And another guy that I really want to see leave his team, actually, is Jock Peterson, because we don't hear enough about Jock Peterson. He's a really good baseball player, but we talked earlier about how loaded the Dodgers roster is. He's kind of forgotten at times. I could see him going to a team like the Texas Rangers, who really have nothing to lose. They need a powerful bat, and Jock would bring that for them. So I'd like to see Jock get a fresh start in a place like Texas.
Alex, you have any guys picked out that might be leaving and headed to new homes?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. I think George Springer, I definitely see him going to a city like Los Angeles and playing for the Angels, just because that's one of the things they've been lacking like recently. So I feel like he could kind of boost their team in that direction and just overall make them better in the place. So, yeah.
All right, and I agree with Trevor Bauer. He's definitely on the go. I don't see him re-signing in Cincinnati at all. A team that I wrote down, I agree with your guys' takes. Miami needs some help. AL Central, it would definitely make one of those two teams stand out a little more, Jacob. I wrote down the San Diego Padres. I don't know why. I think they're one pitcher away from getting over that hump, and I think Clevenger is going to do a lot of recruiting to get his buddy back in the same uniform as him. Clevenger now dealing with an injury, so they're even more thin at starting pitcher if that's more serious than expected. But I think Bauer is a guy that we could see stringing up the antique white Padres jersey. But there's a lot of places that want Bauer. I mean, he's the hottest starting pitcher on the market right now, because after him, the second best is Marcus Stroman, who hasn't had his best seasons behind him in a few years. So Bauer, definitely the best starting pitcher on this list. I'm going to go off the top 10 for another pick. I think Michael Brantley's on the move. I think he wasn't a part of the cheating scandal. He was in that same boat as Zach Greinke, where he was a little disappointed in the team that he found out about, that he signed with. And I think he's going to head out because of that. And I might be wrong on this. This might be a long shot. But due to him obviously not wanting as much money, him aging, I could see a reunion with Cleveland. They need an outfielder. He still produces well, but you can tell there's obviously a little bit of aging. I think the Indians are going to try to reach out and maybe get a one-year deal for Michael Brantley to come back to Cleveland. That'd be really cool to see, but I definitely don't see him going back to Houston. There's some other names. I'm wondering what a guy like Corey Kluber is going to do after so many injuries, if he's going to stick with Texas or if he's on the move again. I'm really interested to see what Jock Peterson does. He's so low on this list, and I agree. I would put him in the top 10 arguably over Kevin Gausman or Liam Hendricks or even Stroman. I think Jock Peterson's such an overlooked bat in any team's lineup, a big part of the Dodgers, I think, this year. And whoever gets him, they're getting a good outfielder and a good hitter, that's for sure. So I'm looking out for where he goes. I want to see him leave LA because I think he's just overshined for a good player.
Yeah, and I think, too, he's so young still that you can kind of build a team around him in a way, too. He's so talented, so young. A team like Texas, who doesn't necessarily have that bona fide superstar, they kind of thought Joey Gallo was the guy, but he might not necessarily be. I think that they can go after him and maybe start to build around him a little bit more.
Yeah. And obviously, this is a podcast here in Northeast Ohio, so all 5 of us Tribe fans. Is there any guys on this list that you'd love to see the Tribe go after, especially after the slew of players they just kind of like said, hey, go test free agency? I don't know what they're doing with guys like Carlos Santana or Cesar Hernandez, but Is there any guys on this list that you'd like to see them reach out for, Jacob?
Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but I'm unfortunately not a Tribe fan. They got rid of Victor Martinez to the Boston Red Sox, so I followed Vic right over to Boston.
Oh, you're a Boston fan.
I am a Boston fan, and we are in a lot of trouble right now.
Yeah, who are the Sox?
Good.
Who do you want the Sox to get?
Our starting pitching is really bad. I'd like to see them go after Charlie Morton on maybe like a 1-year rental deal, kind of. Maybe if he wants to take a little less money, get that veteran presence back in there, get Boston back on top pretty soon, which I know is not going to happen until we start unloading guys, but a guy can hope. So I think Charlie can help the pitching out, especially with Chris Sale and all of his problems, Eduardo Rodriguez and his problems. So hopefully Charlie Morton's in a Red Sox uniform next year.
So you're hurting extra from this Mookie Betts celebrating, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Favorite baseball player celebrating the wrong team.
Maybe you start following the Dodgers now that he left.
I didn't follow LeBron to LA. I'm not following Mookie to LA either.
LA fan. Brendan, is there anyone you'd like to see throw on a Tribe or Spiders jersey if that gets changed?
Yeah, well, first off, I hope it's not the Spiders. I wouldn't mind seeing the name change, though. As far as the lineup goes, JT Realmuto, it's a stretch, but if it's any guy in that top 10 list, we need a catcher.
Yeah, especially with Perez.
We need a catcher that can hit.
Well, they declined Perez's option, so now our best catcher is Austin Hedges.
I didn't even know that. We have not had a decent catcher since Victor Martinez. So we need to bolster that position.
Rephrase that. We've had a decent catcher since Victor Martinez. We haven't had a well-rounded catcher since Victor Martinez. Gomes could hit, and
Gomes could hit,
but he was
Perez
streaky.
Perez was streaky. He had 2 home runs in 1 World Series game, and we got all hyped up about him.
Well, Perez can't hit, but he's probably the best fielding catcher we've had in a long time. Gomes had a good arm, but couldn't call a game like Perez. But Martinez had it all. I'll give you that.
Martinez had. I think Santana comes back. I don't know about Hernandez. You mentioned Brantley. I'm not about signing guys for 1 year and then saying goodbye. I want a long-term, solid outfielder. We don't have that right now. So
you want Jock Peterson?
You got to get some. Yeah, like Jock Peterson, Marcell Ozuna. Love someone like that. The last good memory I have of Jock Peterson at Progressive Field was the Home Run Derby. So, yeah, that's my rant about the Indians tonight.
Alex, anybody you'd like to see in an Indians uniform?
Yes. Okay, first off, if they change the name, anything's better than that. Okay. I want people agree to like a prior thought with Michael Brantley going. Like, with just like signing someone for a year might be challenging because it's like you're in for a year and you're out, especially since he is a little bit older. There is signs of aging, so he might not last long. But despite that, he still has talent and he still has skills. So if he were in an Indians form, even for just 1 year, I think he could definitely benefit the team in so many ways. And maybe even after a year's up, who's to say what will happen after that? I mean, there's endless possibilities. But I think just looking at the near future and just having 1 year, I think it would be okay.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see Brantley back. I think he'd offer not only a bat that's going to hit 300. Yes, he's not going to put out 15 to 20. He'll probably put out like 7 to 10. But he'll hit 300. I mean, he's Dr. Smooth. He finds the ball to the bat. And I think he'll offer a veteran presence, too, for that outfielder. Maybe he can coach him up. Mercado, after the season, needs a little coaching up. Franmil Reyes, he had a nice streak there. Maybe, I mean, he plays more DH, but he's considered a right fielder. Maybe he can coach his bat to more consistency rather than just streakiness. Luplo can't hit a right-hander to save his life, but Max on left-handers, maybe he can figure that out. Brantley seems like he'd be the kind of guy where you sign him, and once he retires, he becomes your hitting coach because he's been so good at it for so long that he's the guy you want there. So it's going to be interesting to see. Free agency is always a wild ride. Nothing that we've said tonight will probably be correct. That's just how it goes. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out over the next few months as we get into November and really as we get into December. December is where a lot of it happens. But we're in for the ride now. We're strapped in. So that's it for Major League Baseball. We'll keep you updated every Monday night on free agent signings or anything curious going on in the sport, but there will not be an update on games, sadly, for quite a while. So until next April. So now we'll move on to NCAA football, and we'll get to welcome in our buddy Riley for these football segments. A big football guy is what we like to call him. Color commentator for the high school sports. So NCAA football, fun weekend we had last weekend. A couple of us were right on upset specials, and there was almost an upset special brewing at the top, and that's where we'll start. Number 1, Clemson avoids upset and comeback win over Boston College, 34-28. They trailed 28-13 at the half and outscored Boston College 21-0 in the second half. Trevor Lawrence was out after a positive COVID-19 test. Riley, we'll start with you. Is Clemson the same team without Trevor Lawrence?
I think it's obvious that Clemson is not the same team without Trevor Lawrence. And I'll just bring this back to what we've seen and we know is guaranteed from Clemson. If Clemson has a quarterback that can take over games, they're a dominant football team. If they don't, they are a very good top 10 football team, but they are no longer a dominant football team. And that's exactly what you saw this weekend. They didn't have their Deshaun Watson or their Trevor Lawrence, and instead they had like the DJ. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah, does anyone know how to say that? It's like
Uiagalelei.
Uiagalelei.
Yeah, so they had DJ Uiagalelei, however you say that.
It's like Tagovailoa. It took us all a year to figure that out.
He's just not Trevor Lawrence, and he will never be as good as Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is a generational athlete, and to remove someone like that from your team it's hard to do. They're going to struggle this week against Notre Dame, more so than they would if Trevor Lawrence were behind center.
Jacob, is Clemson the same team without Mr. Lawrence?
I agree and disagree with Riley. I definitely think they're not the same team. That's unreasonable to think they would be the same team without Lawrence. But DJ, I'm not even going to give a shot at his last name, but he definitely showed some leadership skills, I think, at least at the quarterback position. He could have easily, when they go down 28-10, just give up and do what typical true freshman quarterbacks do and just fold under the pressure. But he led them back to the victory. He didn't necessarily take them out of the game to begin with anyway, because the defense wasn't really playing all that well in the first half. Sure, he had the fumble exchange mixed up with Travis Etienne, which obviously led to a Boston College touchdown. But in the end, I still feel like he led the offense well. They're definitely going to struggle a little bit more against Notre Dame. I still think they're going to beat Notre Dame personally, though, unless Ian Book can have a really good game. But, yeah, I think Clemson's definitely different. I think that their defense really needs to step up in order for them to maintain success. And I think Uiagalelei is going to do a good enough job to keep the ship afloat, like while Trevor Lawrence is gone. Definitely not going to do the same that Trevor Lawrence would do, but I think he's going to do enough to put them in positions to win.
Brendan, how about them Tigers?
I'm not really sure how to examine this game. I mean, you look at the first half, and we were all saying, yeah, Clemson is without Trevor Lawrence, but it's not like he played defense. They gave up 28 points to a decent Boston College team. They're not great, but they're not the number one team in the country. That's not good when you look at their defense. That Boston College kind of exposed their defense, so that's good news for Notre Dame. But to see Uiagalelei bring them back in the second half, maybe he is the real deal as a freshman. A 5-star freshman, St. John Bosco Prep, the number one high school team in the country from California. He's not just, a backup like you see in the NFL where they're just guys there to sit on the bench. He is at Clemson for a reason. He is a 5-star for a reason. Is he going to be able to do that against a really good Notre Dame team and their Notre Dame defense? I'm not sure. It's going to be a huge test for him. But to answer your question, no, they're not the same team without Trevor Lawrence. They're about a 500 team.
500 team. So we even get a number thrown at us. Now I will say
that's too low for me.
In the ACC, that's a little low for me. In the ACC this year, I think teams that could beat them, Boston College almost did it. I think Notre Dame has a solid chance. Maybe Miami of Florida. Pitt likes to throw in an upset every now and then. That's maybe the 3 teams I could see knocking them off in the ACC.
North Carolina?
North Carolina just got beat by Virginia, 44-41.
They have a winning record.
But Sam Howell is streaky at quarterback there for them.
Yeah.
If that team clicks and their defense can hold up for them, I think they're a lot scarier than people might think.
That's the big thing.
Like last year, their defense held up against Clemson, and Sam Howell played good enough to put them in a position where they were actually almost able to win. Like they lost by inches.
Yeah. But I don't think they're the same team without Trevor Lawrence, but I do think they're still a solid squad. Like Riley said, a top 10 team. And for a freshman quarterback to come out on, 2 days' notice that he's the starter, I still think he performed well. Great second half. Boston College is no pushover. They've never had the flashy record, but it seems like they're in every game. They've always had a good defense, too. I think the funny part of this game is we talked about the Notre Dame game next Saturday. The quarterback for Boston College was actually Notre Dame's backup quarterback last year, Phil Jurkovich. He transferred because of Ian Book staying for a 5th year, and he played really well. And I think the funniest part is I follow a lot of barstools, college barstools, and Notre Dame kept saying backup U is about to beat Clemson because they were talking about Jurkovich. But I think he played a really well game, and you're exactly right. If that's going to be the key factor for next week, and we'll get into next week's game, so I don't want to talk too much about it. But if Ian Book can come out firing on all cylinders and get that offense going, because we know what that defense can do at Notre Dame. But it's all about the offense next Saturday, and we'll get into that number 1 versus number 4 contest. But we'll keep talking about this past weekend's game. Number 2, Alabama shuts out Mississippi State 41-zip. Devontae Smith hauls in 11 passes for 203 yards and 4 touchdowns in their first game without Jalen Waddle. Should Alabama be number 1, guys? Brendan, I'll start with you.
I still don't think so. The way they played against Georgia still has me kind of concerned about where Alabama is at. That was Mississippi State. I mean, you still look at the SEC, and it's still really lopsided. LSU now is back to being same old LSU, not very good. Florida was a little overhyped for me. Auburn still not same old Auburn as we saw with King Newton. So I just look at Alabama's schedule, and they're not playing great opponents. Mississippi State, they win their first game, and then create a bandwagon for them. Now look where they're at. I'm just not sold on Alabama just yet. Top 4 for sure, but I'm not sold on the Crimson Tide. I don't think that they're as talented as when they had their championships a few years back.
Jacob, should Alabama be number 1?
Not quite yet. I don't think so. I agree with Brendan on that. The competition is not necessarily all that great in the SEC that they're playing this year. I think it was good that their defense got a shutout, though. Their defense has been a little inconsistent this year, so it's good to see them get a shutout. The only thing that they should be number 1, though, in is their quarterback should be number 1 in the Heisman race after this. Mac Jones continues to ball out. He's thrown for 2,196 yards, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions this year. I mean, he's balling. I think that he's the front runner for the Heisman. That's the only thing Alabama's leading in. They should not be the top team in the nation.
Jacob, I will have you know, was it FanDuel that released it or DraftKings? One of the two released their betting odds on the Heisman. and Mac Jones has now become the favorite after Trevor Lawrence missing last week. Trevor Lawrence
Yeah.
fell to 3. Justin Fields is 2 from Ohio State. So right
Yeah.
now, Mac Jones is the favorite.
I was thinking Trevor Lawrence was probably going to end up beating him because it is Trevor Lawrence and he was having a great year in his own right. But now that he's gone, I don't see how you can't give it to Mac Jones unless Justin Fields continues all this dominant play.
Yeah, it's tough in a shortened season to miss any games and still expect to win the Heisman. I agree with that. Riley, where do you have Alabama? Do you have them where they're at 2, or do you think they play good enough to be number 1 when Clemson doesn't have that great of a schedule either?
I think that Alabama is going to end up being the 3rd ranked team in the country. If you look at the top 3 rosters in college football, it's definitely Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson. But when you're really analyzing the details, I think Jalen Waddle is way more important to Alabama's offense than they want their opponents to realize. And I also think that, their defense doesn't look as dominant as it has been in the past. And when they're going up against some of these Final Four teams, they're going to go up against teams that are just as good as them. And I think in that totem pole, they're the 3rd best team in the country.
Okay. Now I see things from everything. Right now, I think Alabama's probably played the best football through their 6-0 record. Clemson, they've played very good football with us last week. Was rough. They haven't had quite the schedule yet until this Saturday. Alabama has that big win, 17-point win over Georgia. Ohio State's just played 2 games. So right now, if I'm ranking it based week on week, I have Alabama at number 1 right now. Not to say that they're going to be the number 1 team at the end of the season. I'm not saying that. I'm saying my week 8 Will Brianza top 25 poll, Alabama's probably number 1. Forget the AP. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm just kidding. They've been doing it for quite a while, longer than I have. So we'll move on to the next game. The Buckeyes coming into this week at number 3. They ride a quick start where they jump out 14-0 to victory as they defeat the Nittany Lions of Penn State, who were ranked 18th, 38-25. Justin Fields is immaculate once again as he goes 28 of 34 for 318 yards and 4 touchdowns in the win. And also, I'll never forget the pass to Olave. I mean, the placement there for that touchdown pass in this last game. He's the real deal. So, guys, after beating Penn State, is it a given that the Buckeyes go 8-0 and win the Big Ten? Jacob?
Yeah, I think it's a given, but also what I think makes it more of a given is the fact that Michigan lost their game, too.
Yep.
So they took out the threat with Penn State, and Michigan loses without Ohio State having to beat them. That just assures it. I don't necessarily see anybody else in the Big Ten really challenging the Buckeyes at all. And I think that their path is just very clear now with both Penn State and Michigan losing in the same week to go 8-0.
Riley, is Ohio State going 8-0 and winning the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think Ohio State is a cut above the rest in that conference. It's just you look at the differences between each team, and Ohio State just is favored in too many areas. They're going to win too many matchups against your football team to stay competitive every week if you're another Big Ten team. The only team I could see giving them a scare at some point this season is Wisconsin. I mean, if their quarterback is back healthy and he starts playing like he did week 1 again.
You're talking about in the Big Ten championship, right?
Wait, what?
You're talking about like Wisconsin if they were to match up in the championship.
Yes, yeah. That's the only team that would prevent Ohio State from steamrolling the conference into the playoff, in my opinion. But other than that, they're probably just a cut above the rest. I don't see how any team has beaten them this year.
Okay. Brendan.
You talk about Olave's catch. You got to give a shout out to Jahan Dotson, who made that one-hander, juked the guy, and got into the end zone. That was, I think, best catch of the weekend for Penn State.
I was talking more ball placement, though, on the field on that. Sorry to interrupt. Dotson's catch was by far better. I was talking about Fields' ball placement on that pass. I mean, is unbeaten.
Ball placement, yeah, great. But, I mean, Justin Fields is a step above every other quarterback in the conference. Master Teague, how about a breakout game for him? Just love that name. He's, 35 carries, 151 yards. That's crazy. against a really good Penn State defense. But yeah, 8-0. No one's going to challenge them. Agree with Jacob. Michigan losing to Michigan State just weakens that game for Ohio State. It's laughable now, more now than ever. So, yeah, 8-0, number 2 team in the playoff.
I don't know if you guys forgot about the Hoosiers of Indiana, but they're 2-0 and ranked at 13th, baby. And they're on Ohio State's schedule.
I don't think they're a serious threat to Ohio State.
No, I don't think they are either. I think Ohio State's going to – I'm just messing with you guys. Yeah, this weekend against Rutgers, that's the prime-time showdown, big noon kickoff. No, but no, I don't think there's a threat on the Buckeye schedule either. I think they go 8-0, steamroll, and their only chance at losing, I agree with Riley, is Wisconsin. Now, I will say my thoughts might change if Indiana beats Michigan, because if Indiana starts 3-0 with wins over Michigan and Penn State, maybe they are, and they've always fought Ohio State in the first half. I feel like Indiana, Ohio State, every time they play, it's upset alert at halftime, then Ohio State just steamrolls them in the second half, and it's not even a close game.
But I feel like playing Michigan after a loss is one of the most dangerous positions to be in college football, though.
That's true.
Like, Jim Harbaugh does not lose twice in a row very often.
No, he doesn't. So
if he loses, it's not 2 weeks in a row. So, I mean, you better be scared if you're Indiana. I think Indiana's on upset alert for sure.
All right, and we'll get into that, Riley. I love that. So I think we're all agreeing here that Ohio State has a pretty safe path to playoffs. And it's not, I'm not saying safe as in like, oh, they shouldn't be there, they didn't play anybody. They're obviously a top 3 team in college football, and their schedule is going to allow them to get there with ease. So moving on, Jacob and I, Brendan, I don't know if you called this one as well, but I know for a fact Jacob did and I said something. Number 6, Oklahoma State falls in overtime to the Longhorns. 41-34. There is no longer an undefeated remaining in the Big 12. And that just goes to show defense wins ball games, not offense. Guys.
I did not. Oh, no.
You did not? Okay. Will the Big 12 be represented in the college football playoffs? Jacob, I'll start with you since you called this one with me.
It will not. I think the team that wins the Big 12 has 2 losses myself, and I'm still not convinced Oklahoma State's going to finish with 2 losses. I still can see them losing to a team maybe like Kansas State, even though Kansas State even lost this week too. And I could see Oklahoma and Texas ultimately playing each other in the Big 12 championship with 2 losses myself. So this is just horrible for the Big 12. I think it just shows that, for me personally, I still think it's ACC with Clemson or Notre Dame. The Big Ten's obviously going to always have Ohio State, or like how Riley said, Wisconsin can definitely challenge them. And then the SEC's always going to have Alabama or Georgia, some team like that. Big 12's just not there this year. I'm saying that the winner's going to end up with 2 losses, so therefore they don't have a shot.
Riley?
I don't think any Big 12 team has a shot at the college football playoff at all. I also think there's a pretty good chance that whoever wins the Big 12 is a 2-loss team, and if they aren't, their 1 loss is going to be pretty ugly in the eyes of the committee. And also, if you're putting some other like fringe number 4 teams up against the best Big 12 team, whether you argue it's Texas or Oklahoma or OK State, I don't think they're better than Georgia. I don't think they're better than Alabama. I don't think that they're even better than the best group of 5 team, Cincinnati. So I just don't think that a Big 12 team is going to make it this year.
Brendan?
Right now, top 2 teams in the standings in the Big 12 are Iowa State and Kansas State. And then you have Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. Like, are you really going to put Iowa State in the playoff? I mean, who are they going to beat to show themselves that they can be in the playoff? I mean, it's a really good football conference. They just hurt themselves when you have Oklahoma losing to Texas in overtime the way they did. I mean, Texas isn't even good enough to be in the playoff, in my opinion. So it's a really challenging year for the conference. Just no teams that are good enough to be in the playoff and compete with the big boys.
Yeah, they're all beating up on each other. I mean, looking at the rankings, OK State's the highest at 14, Iowa State 17, Oklahoma 19, and Texas 22. If anyone's going to make the playoffs, they have quite the battle uphill. Texas and Oklahoma already both have 2 losses. And then Iowa State and Oklahoma State both with a loss each. It's a battle now, and I just don't see it's a battle that the Big 12 can win. So I agree that the Big 12 will be unrepresented, which might not be the worst thing. I mean, look at them historically in the playoffs. Oklahoma's, 0-4. Who else from the Big 12 has made it? Was it TCU the one year? Did they make? No, that was Washington. That was a purple team. Is Oklahoma the only team from the Big 12 to ever make the playoffs?
I think it was only Oklahoma. I can't really think of any other Big 12 team being that relevant the past couple of years, so I think it is just Oklahoma.
Baylor was close one year, I think.
Yeah.
But
Buckeyes beat them out, I think, with like 1 or 2 losses maybe. Well, no. Buckeyes, I'm pretty sure, had 1 loss, did not go to the Big Ten championship game, still beat Baylor to get in there.
Yeah, so 0-4 from the Big 12 in the college ball playoffs. Maybe it's not the worst thing. They don't have a team going in this year, especially
Kansas.
Okay. Kansas still hasn't even won a game. They're the Jets of college football.
Go Jayhawks.
It's not basketball season yet, Riley. All right.
I wasn't talking about basketball season. I'm supporting the best college football coach ever born, Les Miles.
Agreed.
There you go. Best coach.
Give some love to Matt Campbell at Iowa State, guys.
Yeah, that's true. Alum.
Coach of the year, Les Miles, 0-11. Kansas Jayhawks. He was there every game. That's why he won.
They've improved. They've improved under Les Miles.
Their point differential went from 48 to 46. Go Miles, baby.
Hey, baby steps. Haven't you seen the movie What About Bob?
I have not.
You're missing out. Baby steps, man.
I'll have to watch it then. So we already talked a little bit about this one, guys. Number 13, Michigan, cannot improve to 2-0. They fall to Michigan State 27-24. Brendan, I'll start with you. Is it time to start thinking about moving on from Harbaugh, or do you just stick with him?
Well, his track record isn't great. Can't beat Ohio State. Can't beat a team that lost to Rutgers. He just doesn't have any major wins. I mean, yeah, he's beaten Notre Dame a couple times, right? I think only twice he's beaten Notre Dame.
Yep.
Last year being one of them. But you're evaluated as head coach of Michigan of how you play, how you coach and perform in conference, and especially against Ohio State. And when you can't beat Ohio State, then you're not meant to be the head coach at Michigan. I think it was time to move on a couple years ago, but he's still around for some reason. The sweatpants aren't working. They got to move on. Should have stuck in the NFL. I mean, you have to be able to recruit. I don't think he's recruiting very well. They need to move on. I don't know who it will be, but they got to move on.
Yeah, I think the number was Harbaugh's 0-7 against Ohio State in his tenure, and then 4-4 against Michigan State. So not even just talking about the conference, but it seems like he has he's struggling against a Spartans team who, yes, made the playoffs 3 or 4 years ago, but in the last couple of years they haven't really been that good. They've been really inconsistent, and they even have a new head coach this year. To go down this year is even worse. So I don't think it's just Ohio State. It's like you said, the conference. They're splitting with Penn State, or Penn State's leading with under him. They're splitting with Michigan State, and they're losing games that they shouldn't be losing. Riley, is it time to move on?
I think it's mutually beneficial for both parties to move on from each other. In terms of Michigan, he's not getting the job done against the Ohio State, the Michigan State, the Penn State, and so in your conference, he's just not getting you to the point where you'll get out. However, I'm 100% with Joel Klatt on this one. He has argued that Michigan has always been a good football program and not a great one. And they're pinning these expectations on Jim Harbaugh to be a national championship winner, and that's just not what Michigan is. So I understand that, but also Brennan brought up a good point. I don't think that he's out-recruiting his biggest opponents, and that's something that it's just unique to college football. I think he's a way better pro coach. There's going to be some really attractive professional jobs opening up, and I think that you might see a mutual split between Michigan and Jim Harbaugh as he goes back to the NFL and they search for someone who can finally take the reins in college.
Jacob.
I think he has those national championship pedigree attached to him basically because of how he talks all the time. He always talks like he's going to go and win a national championship. But like how Will said, he's 0-7 against Ohio State. He's 4-4 against Michigan State. And to add on to that, he's 1-6 at home against both of them combined. And in bowl games, he's 1-4. So he's not getting the job done whatsoever. So really, he needs to go. I agree with Riley. He's a much better pro coach. I think Michigan's holding on to him just because he has the Michigan tie. He was Michigan's quarterback at one time. So I think they kind of want to treat him with a little bit of respect when really he doesn't necessarily deserve it because he's just not getting the job done. I mean, if you can't beat your rivals and you can't beat your teams in the conference, then there's no justification for you remaining there. So Harbaugh's got to go after this year.
Yeah, I agree with Riley. Maybe it's time for the NFL again. They call him the quarterback whisperer, and Michigan has not had a good quarterback under his tenure. But in the NFL, he had Alex Smith, who ended up going on to a long career. He had Kaepernick, who he led to a Super Bowl. Maybe the NFL is the right way to go. And I think the reason he has all this hype surrounding him is, and the expectations he has on him is because of what he did with Stanford. Stanford, in the 5 years before him, won 16 total games. And then he took over, goes 4-8, 5-7, then gets them to 8-5 into the Sun Bowl, their first bowl game in over a decade. And then he goes 12-1 and wins the Orange Bowl. And after that season, he took over the coach. He went to the NFL. But I mean, before that, Stanford was bad. And now he handed it off to David Shaw, a really good Stanford team. And David Shaw kept them afloat for quite a while, was able to get recruits because of what Harbaugh built. And I think Michigan was trying to get that same from Harbaugh, and they really have. I mean, before Harbaugh, Michigan wasn't winning 10 games a year. They've done that a couple times under Harbaugh. So they've gotten what they want. I don't think the expectation should have ever been a national championship for Michigan. And especially when you have Ohio State.
It is when you're at Michigan.
What is it? What'd you say?
That's kind of what it is when you're at a school like Michigan.
But I mean, that should never be the expectations when your final game of the year is an Ohio State team who has proved that they own the rivalry right now. Like,
well, this isn't the Pac-12 like Stanford. This is Big Ten football.
I know what you're saying.
Like, the expectation level at Stanford and Michigan is night and day. So I don't know what your point is here.
My point is Michigan expected Harbaugh to come in and do what he did in Stanford, turn them around quickly, and win 12 games in a year.
He hasn't.
Exactly. That shouldn't be his expectations, is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, yeah, he's not meeting them at all.
That's what you literally just reassured my point. The Pac-12 is the Pac-12, and that's why he was able to turn around Stanford so quick. Your expectations shouldn't be coming to the Big.
Where you were going with that.
Your expectations shouldn't be coming to the Big Ten, and within 4 years you're 12-0. That's not going to happen.
Okay, well, I think that's where I'm disagreeing with you. Like, that is the expectation. It should be.
Not in 4 years.
Kind of.
The Big Ten.
Urban Meyer did it with Ohio State.
You're talking about Ohio State, though, Riley.
Thank you.
Riley, you're talking about Ohio State. They were already a good team when Urban Meyer took over.
Yeah, that's true. But if you're looking at Michigan brass, like they set it out pretty clearly. That's what they wanted for Jim Harbaugh. I mean, when they hired him, they didn't say we're rebuilding Michigan football. They said we're winning national championships. And, I mean, he hasn't delivered on that. But to be fair, I do find that to be an unreasonable proposition from Michigan. But in the same breath, Harbaugh agreed to that. He agreed to what was set forth, even though it was unreasonable, which I get what you're saying, Will. But that's why I say it should be a mutual breakup between both parties. Like, I just don't see how they're benefiting from each other anymore.
Can you guys answer a question for me? Who was the head coach at Ohio State when Harbaugh took over?
Trussell?
No.
Urban Meyer.
Thank you. He should not have ever been expected to win a national championship. His first expectation going up against a coach like Urban Meyer at Ohio State should be just win a conference championship for us.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on that. I think my take on it, too, is personally, like how you said, Michigan wasn't necessarily winning 10 games, but they were still winning like 8 or 9 games. So I think when Jim Harbaugh came there, what they expected him to do was keep building on like a solid foundation that Michigan had and going to the Big Ten championship. The fact that he hasn't been to a Big Ten championship, I think, is what looks worse for the national championship. I still think he definitely, when you come to Michigan, you're expected to compete for national championships, but you're not going to compete for a national championship if you're not going to the Big Ten championship, which that's where I think he's failed the most too. And that's why I think he definitely has to go too, because like how I just said, you can't make the national championship unless you make your conference championship, and he hasn't come anywhere close to that.
No, and I agree. That's why I agreed with Riley that they should part ways. He goes back to the NFL where he was very successful, and Michigan, they bring in a new coach, and the expectations should not be as high as they were for Harbaugh. Because, I mean, I think Ryan Day, this might be an unpopular opinion. Anyone listening on YouTube to this later, they can shout me out, comment, and call me out. But I think Ryan Day is the better football coach than Urban Meyer. I think Ryan Day is a better football coach. And I think
he's a better college football coach. If you're considering college, I think Ryan Day is absolutely superior because he can recruit better. But I mean, Harbaugh is definitely one of the better coaches in the game in terms of scheme and drawing up plays and stuff like that. But he's not a recruiter at all. And that's where his shortcoming is in college.
I'm not talking about Day and Harbaugh, Riley.
Yeah,
I think Day's a better coach than Meyer.
I agree with you on that, Will, because I think Ryan Day goes with what's working as opposed to Urban Meyer. I know when the Buckeyes had Ezekiel Elliott, because I remember this game in particular against Michigan State. Like, Ezekiel Elliott is Ezekiel Elliott for crying out loud. Like, he was the best running back in college football, and they stopped handing him off the ball. They lose to Michigan State with that. You never see that with Ryan Day. If something's working, Ryan Day's going to constantly go with it, and that's why I agree with you on that. He's a better coach than Urban Meyer in that sense.
So that's why I'm saying when Michigan, if they were to part ways, you find a new coach, you can't set those expectations because Ohio State's even better now than they were when Harbaugh came in against Meyer. So I think the expectations should be shrunk from, hey, you're coming in and you're giving the Wolverines a championship, to, hey, you're coming in and we want you within the next 5 years to give us a conference championship. Just beat the Buckeyes, for crying out loud. That should be the only goal a coach has if they're wearing the blue and maize on the sideline and coaching. Their only goal. They could go 1-11, but if that one wins Ohio State, that coach has an extra year on their contract, in my opinion.
When was the last time they beat Ohio State? 2012, 2013?
I feel like I wasn't even alive
Fickle
for it.
was the head coach.
Well, that explains.
That whole probation period, Luke Fickle could not beat Michigan.
So that's even worse.
I was looking at a discussion post on the Michigan coaching, like, who do they want in? Somebody said Fickle to the big house, and I was like, is that a joke because, like, maybe if Fickle's in the game, Ohio State will lose? Or do you guys actually think Fickle's going to be successful? Because there's no way that fan thinks he's a good coach. There's no way. But to answer your question, Brendan, the last time was 2011, 40-34 Michigan.
Gonna go a whole decade here.
Yep, it's been 1, 2,
This
3, 4.
This is kind of funny. I found it funny that Luke Fickle was brought up. He's actually probably going to be one of the hottest coaching hires in NCAA after this year. He's the head coach of Cincinnati. He might actually end up being hired to coach Michigan football. Like, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So I just think that's funny.
Based on what Ohio State's done while he's a part of the game, Michigan might get over that hump. But it's going to be similar to, like, the Brian Kelly thing. Brian Kelly took Cincinnati undefeated, and now he got his big job at Notre Dame. He's doing well. Maybe Fickle can do the same thing. Great discussion about Michigan. Didn't know they'd spur such a conversation being who they are, but continuing into college football talk, the AP poll comes out. Guys, What are your thoughts on this week's polls? Is there any teams that you thought went up too high, maybe down too low? Surprised on the 3 new teams? Jacob, we'll start with you.
First, I want to give a shout-out to Luke Fickle's team, Cincinnati, still climbing up those rankings at number 6. Hopefully we get in the top 4 someday so they can make the playoff, even though that's still a long shot, I know. But the teams that I was happy to see in the AP poll, teams like Coastal Carolina, Marshall, and even Liberty, it's just nice to see fresh faces that really never get in other than this crazy season that we're having. So it's nice to see them in there. But personally, I think Indiana is too high just for simply beating Penn State. I think if they beat Michigan this week, then yeah, you can start to say if they're legit or not. But Penn State's 0-2 now, so we don't know necessarily if Penn State is all that good anymore. So I would just say my only take on it is Indiana might be just slightly too high.
Brendan?
No, yeah, I think it's a fairly even standings this week. I agree with Jacob. I think Indiana's a little too high. Surprised to see BYU at number 9. I don't know. They beat who they beat this past weekend? I don't even know.
Western Kentucky, baby. Go Cougars. They're so slept on right now.
Who, Western Kentucky?
No, BYU. They're 7-0. Their average point differential is through the roof. And Zach Wilson, the junior quarterback, is a dog.
They're not playing anyone important right now to be number 9.
Okay, I know, but
they also have one of the best performing offensive lines of all time in college football.
Yes.
Like, cohesively as a unit, their offensive line is almost record-setting.
Zach Wilson's playing really well under Helm.
I just think if you're in the top 10, you are going to be in consideration and talks for the college football playoff. BYU should never be in the college football playoff.
Whoa.
I'm just saying that right
Slow
now.
your roll, buddy.
Freaking you.
Slow your roll. They're 7-0. They play at number 21 Boise. Well, listen to me. 7-0. They're at number 21 Boise State this week. That's a huge game. If they pull that off, then they definitely beat North Alabama. Then they play San Diego State. That's not a cakewalk either. If they win those 2 games,
BYU in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
I want to see BYU in there.
Watch it. It shouldn't matter who wants to watch it. It should be the best 4 football teams in the country, no matter what, every year.
If Cincinnati's getting looked at, BYU's doing the same thing. Cincinnati, yes, they had a better opponent in SMU, but BYU's better opponent is Boise State this weekend.
Sorry I brought this up. Jeez.
Go Cougars. Go Cougars. All right, Brendan, carry on.
What?
Carry on.
That was it.
Okay, Riley. What do I have to come at you for?
Okay, so in terms of the AP top 25, I think it's pretty good in the top 10. Like I feel pretty good about the teams that are in the top 10. I think one thing to note is they have Cincinnati ranked at 6, and if you're looking at teams that have been in that 6th spot and been able to stay there, most of them either get the 4 seed or barely miss with the 5. I think Cincinnati's different. I think this year we have a legitimate chance to get a group of 5 team in there. Cincinnati has 2 NFL quarterbacks, 2 NFL DNs, and a head coach ready to get a primetime job. That's a dangerous football team. Cincinnati, the Bearcats, they're dangerous. So I really like them at 6 with the ability to move up. But towards the bottom half of the top 25, I don't like what's happening at all. Liberty at 25. Liberty is not a top 25 team in the country. Sorry. I don't think Coastal Carolina is a top 25 team in the country. Yeah, wow, there's just some crazy top 25s here on the back end, and I don't like what they're doing with that.
With the Pac-12 starting next week and the Big Ten being in action, I think some of those teams start falling out more. You see USC.
I really hope so.
USC and Oregon are the only 2 teams ranked here. So
look at BYU's schedule: Navy,
Tell me.
They're
Wait,
eating us-
wait, Brendan. Tell me the team and then tell me the final score, though.
What?
Tell me their opponent, but tell me the final score as well.
Navy.
Final score?
Oh, 55-3. I thought you were
Oh,
getting.
wow. 52 points, baby. Keep going.
Troy, 48-7.
Big win.
Louisiana
Smacked
Tech,
'em.
45-14.
Big win.
UTSA, 27-20.
Off week, still got the
Never
dub.
underestimate the Roadrunners.
Off week, still got the dub. Continue.
Houston, 43-26.
17-point win over a good team on the road.
Smacked 'em.
Texas State, 52-14.
Big win.
Smacked them.
Western Kentucky, 41-10.
Big win.
I don't care if you win big. I care about who you're going to play.
What do you mean? They're doing what they're supposed to.
They're steamrolling them.
They're doing what they're supposed to. They've
Strength
covered.
of schedule.
They've
strength
covered.
of schedule is important to me. I take it personally.
They've covered the line by double in like 5 of their 7 games. The point
I
spread.
don't care.
They've covered the point spread by double in 5 of their 7 games.
They're an independent. They can schedule whoever they want, schedule better opponents, and win like that.
They will this Saturday against Boise State, baby.
Yeah, and then after Boise State, they have North Alabama and San Diego State.
San Diego State's not a bad team. I'm pretty sure San Diego State went like 10-2 last year.
North Alabama's 0-2, so.
Well, North Alabama, I don't even think is FBS. But that's besides the point. They're doing what they're supposed to against the teams they play. It's just like Cincinnati. Cincinnati's not playing the best schedule in the world, but they're doing what they're supposed to,
Playing
which is
better
killing
schedule than BYU.
And I said I agree with that, but you can't discredit what BYU's doing.
Look at what the college football playoff has done to us.
Go Cougars. That's all I'm going to say. When I look at this, I agree with Riley. There's some teams in there that I don't think are a top 25 team. It's just due to the weird year of 2020 that they're undefeated right now. But I'm happy to see BYU and Cincinnati in the top 10, as we've heard from me before with my turn. I'm glad to see they gave BYU that nod at number 9 and knock Wisconsin back after Wisconsin was unable to play due to their own lack of self-control and the reason the game was canceled. So good for them. BYU 7-0, very deserving of that 9th spot. It's going to be interesting to see what the Pac-12 does. Where does Oregon and USC go? They're both ranked right now 12 and 20. Where do they go as the season starts? Do we see more Pac-12 teams move in as the season gets underway? That's going to be interesting to see. But other than that, I don't think there's anything that's too horribly wrong with this. Jacob, you said Indiana's really high, but when you look at it, they beat Penn State, they beat Rutgers, they're 2-0, and I do think they're better than Coastal Carolina, Marshall. They probably could beat Iowa State. They would have a chance against SMU. Now, they probably don't beat Oklahoma, USC, Texas. We'll see what they do against Michigan this weekend. But there's definitely teams on this list that they're better than. And that's probably why they're at 13. But this Saturday is going to be a big deciding factor on whether they are where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I was only saying that just because I don't know if Penn State's necessarily all that good. Even from watching them against the Buckeyes this past weekend, I wasn't necessarily that impressed with them. And I know that they were playing a tough team in Ohio State, but at the same time, I mean, they just didn't look like the same Penn State to me. So I don't necessarily know if they're all that great this year.
I think that's Ohio State's closest game, though.
Could very well be.
But we'll move on. So looking at Week 9, we have some big matchups, some upset opportunities. So we'll go around. We'll say what we think is on upset special and your game of the week. I'm going to go through the list real quick. We'll have number 1 Clemson at number 4 Notre Dame. Rutgers travels to the Horseshoe to take on number 3 Ohio State. Number 8 Florida at number 5 Georgia, another top 10 matchup. Houston at number 6 Cincinnati. Number 7 Texas A&M at South Carolina. Number 9 BYU at number 21 Boise State for a top 25 matchup. Purdue at number 10 Wisconsin. Number 11 Miami at NC State. Stanford at number 12 Oregon for Pac-12 kickoff. Number 23 Michigan at number 13 Indiana for a top 25 matchup. Number 14 Oklahoma State at Kansas State to see if either of those two teams can bounce back. South Alabama at number 15, Coastal Carolina. UMass at number 16, Marshall. Baylor at number 17, Iowa State. Number 18, SMU at Temple. Kansas at number 19, Oklahoma, as Kansas looks to win their first game. Arizona State at number 20, USC for Pac-12 kickoff as well. West Virginia at number 22, Texas. And number 25, Liberty at Virginia Tech. Riley, we'll start with you. Any of these games spill out upset special? And which game is your game of the week? I think the game of the week might be the same for all of us, but I'm still going to ask it. So, Riley.
On upset alert, I have 2 games that I'm looking at. Number 7, Texas A&M at South Carolina. South Carolina's been known to pull up the upset every once in a while. This season, they're 2-3, not having a great season. But in every game that they've lost to a ranked opponent, they've at least kept somewhat competitive. They've even beaten Auburn this year. So look for Texas A&M to maybe get caught napping a little bit and lose one at South Carolina. And then my game of the week, it has to be Clemson and Notre Dame. Obviously, that's the one everyone has their eyes on. Whoever loses this game, if it's Clemson that loses, I think that they only drop to like 5 or 6. But if Notre Dame loses, I think you might see a second SEC team enter the fold in the top 4, or you might see the emergence of Cincinnati in the top 4. It just depends on how the cards fall.
Jacob.
So I have 2 games on upset alert right now. They're both top 25 matchups. I think Florida can knock off Georgia this week. Georgia's offense isn't really that good, so if it continues really not to be that good, I think Florida can sneak one out this week. And I'm sorry, Will, I love the Cougars too. I really, really do. I think Boise State potentially, in a very close game, could beat them. Their offense is super dynamic too. So I think Boise State can potentially pull off the upset. I really want to see BYU keep this up and potentially make the playoff, but I just have a feeling Boise State might. And my game of the week is like everybody else's. It's definitely the winless Kansas getting blown out by about 55 points to Oklahoma. I'm just kidding on that note. It's definitely Clemson and Notre Dame still. I think, like how Riley said, huge implicator. I still personally think Clemson's going to end up winning the game. I think it's going to be really close. I just don't believe in Ian Book enough to end up beating Clemson, so therefore I think Clemson's going to win. Notre Dame's going to drop out of the race. For now, they can come back and potentially win the ACC championship and get right back in that fold. But, yeah, it's definitely a game of the week, Clemson and Notre Dame.
Brendan.
I also think Boise State upsets BYU. I think the Cougar Magic comes to an end. What?
So of course you do.
Yeah, well, I also think, if we're talking about upsets, I would say Houston against Cincinnati. I think the Bearcats, they have to lose at some point, right?
Group of 5 hater right here. Brendan DeVinny, the group of 5 hater.
11-0 Cincinnati Bearcats. College football playoff.
Get your own playoff. But yeah, game of the week, Clemson at Notre Dame. Cathedral of college football. I think Notre Dame pulls it out.
Okay.
Not the way that it should be, though. They should win. They should have a chance to beat Trevor Lawrence, but fortunately they don't.
So when I look at this, it's tough to pick. I think number 12, Oregon, could fall to Stanford. I'm going to go, I don't know, it's so tough. I think Florida beats Georgia. I agree with you guys. I don't think Georgia's offense is all that. They act like they are, but I don't know. I think Florida's the better team there, but I don't know if I'd call that an upset with it being 8-5. Purdue, maybe, on the road against number 10 Wisconsin. Could we see another Big Ten upset? It's what we've seen through the first 2 weeks is a bunch of those.
If
Maybe.
Wisconsin plays.
I was going to say if they play. Other than that, NC State could possibly beat number 11 Miami. But this is a week where you look at these games and the favorite team really has a good chance in every game. Obviously, the game of the week for me as well is Clemson Notre Dame. Big playoff implications in this Week 9 matchup and big ACC standing implications. Who's going to get to wear their home jerseys in the ACC championship? But I definitely think this is part one of a two-part series. I think the loser still wins out, and I think they meet again in the ACC championship. So it's going to be an exciting week. There's a lot of good matchups, and as always with college football, you never know. So don't count any of these teams out. Maybe Rutgers has 7 takeaways again, but with Justin Fields being the quarterback, I highly doubt that. So we'll just scrap I said that. But with that, we're going to move on to the NFL as things continue to heat up as we're just about the halfway point in the season. So we'll start with the Buffalo Bills. Bills Mafia, they hold on to beat the Patriots 24-21. Both quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Cam Newton, struggle a bit. Both have a rushing touchdown, but a field goal by Tyler Bass with 4:06 decides the game. Buffalo improves to 6-2, while New England falls to 2-5. Brendan, we'll start with you. Is this a big win for Buffalo to get to 6-2, or is this a big loss for New England to fall to 2-5?
Big loss for New England. Divisional rival. You got Cam Newton and Bill Belichick. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how you lose this close of a game. New England has to figure it out soon, or if not at all this year. It's just a lost year. I was trying to find the quote that Bill Belichick said after the game about this just not being their year, just letting it be an off year. I was surprised to hear a statement like that come from Belichick. But it's not New England football. I mean, they've got standards there, and they're not meeting them right now, especially with Cam Newton. I mean, he was supposed to be the next coming of Tom Brady with Bill Belichick, and that's not happening.
Jacob, big win for Buffalo or big loss for New England?
I think it's definitely a big loss for New England. Buffalo shouldn't really be proud of anything. Their offense just continues to play horrible, so it's definitely nothing for them. But it shows how dysfunctional this New England team is this year and how this is definitely a down year for them. I personally was expecting a little bit of a decrease in the production of the Patriots, but not this bad, especially when you have Bill Belichick there and you have a guy like Cam Newton there. And the start, of course, they got off to a 2-1 start, so 2-5, definitely, I think you start to hit the panic button here. So this is definitely a big loss for New England. And if you're Buffalo, you still have a lot of problems to address on offense now.
Alex, we'll get you back on here. Sorry, my mic was muted. Alex, we'll get you back on here. Is this a big win for Buffalo or a big loss for New England?
Huge loss for New England. They're just definitely having an off year this year. I mean, not too long ago, you hear them going to the Super Bowl and getting rings, and now they're 2-5. It's just, I feel like for this team, I mean, personally, I've never been one for New England anyway, but I just feel like for them, they're at rock bottom this year.
Riley?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the trend and say it's a huge loss for New England. And Bill Belichick admitted that himself on a radio interview, actually. He said that they had cashed themselves out. They only paid Cam Newton $1 million this year, and everyone knew that they didn't have any money. And they had sold out the past 5 years. And Bill Belichick even said, we won 3 championships. We played in another Super Bowl. And we lost. We played in the conference championship game. So, yeah, we did that. And he admitted that this was going to be a bad year for the Patriots, that things are just not going as planned. And that's just how it'll be this year. The Patriots are definitely going to endure their first losing season in a long time, I think.
And I agree. I think it's a big loss for New England, but it also might be a good loss for New England. You're now 2-5. Buffalo improves to 6-2. The playoffs aren't looking good for you because the wild cards, even the wild card spot right now, the last place team, the Browns, who have the last wild card spot right now, I believe, or the Colts do. It's one of those two. They're still 3 games ahead of you. So maybe it's now time to start the discussion. Do we tank for a guy like Lawrence or Fields? And I think that's going to be the question that they're asking themselves now.
Can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you look at the past three like notable quarterbacks that Belichick has drafted, you're looking at Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett, and Jarrett Stidham. And there's one quarterback prospect in my mind that shares a lot of similarities with those guys this year. Just he's a much better version than all three of them, I think, and that's Trey Lance. I think if you're looking at Trey Lance, he checks the boxes of the underdog mentality that Bill Belichick likes. He has some athleticism that most people can't replicate, and he's going to learn your system. I mean, he's the best quarterback to run the NDSU system since Carson Wentz. And so I think that might be a guy that the Patriots target a little bit more than, say, Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. They might be a little too high for the Patriots to pick, but I'd say look for Belichick to try and trade back a little bit and then snag a guy like Trey Lance.
That's a very good point, Riley. I wasn't even thinking about Trey Lance, but he does fit that fold with more talent. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. We've never seen in our lifetimes New England in this situation where they're like deciding if they're tanking for a draft pick or if they're – it's really weird to see. Literally, I mean, Tom Brady was drafted the year after me and Brendan were born. The rest of you guys are younger than that. So, I mean, they've been a franchise since in our whole lifetime. So, it's really weird to see them sitting at 2-5 through 7 games. Going to be interesting to see where they go from here. But for Buffalo, not to discredit them, a big win for them nonetheless. You're 6-2. You're in the driver's seat of that division. Your only threat right now is Miami, who I don't even feel like is that big of a threat. You just got to keep doing what you're doing, and Sean McDermott, you're on your way to the playoffs. Joe Burrow, he continues to play well. Cincinnati takes down Tennessee 31-20. Burrow goes 26-37 for 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Bengals' second win of the year. And we talked about they easily could have 5 to 6 wins if they were on the other side of close games. Tennessee now falls to 5-2 and has lost 2 in a row. What does this loss mean for Tennessee? I know we probably should be talking about what does this win mean for Cincinnati and Burrow, but we kind of have a feeling that the way Burrow's been playing, once he gets a defense, he's going to work out. But Tennessee, they start 5-0. They have 2 losses now back-to-back against a Cincinnati team that's not all the way there. Is Cincinnati a fluke playoff team, or is this just a little road bump for them? Riley, I'll start with you.
I think that Tennessee is still definitely a playoff team. If you're looking at their division specifically, the teams they're going up against are the Indianapolis Colts, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Houston Texans. And the Colts even being the second best team in that division, the Titans are just a cut above. So they're going to end up being the playoff representative from that division. But in terms of Cincinnati, I think Joe Burrow is the truth, and I believe that there's a strong argument to be made that he might already be the second best quarterback in the AFC North, only behind Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar probably offers you the most flexibility and future star power. Big Ben is still going to get it done, but he's obviously declining. Joe Burrow is the up-and-coming thing in the AFC North.
Jacob, what does this loss mean for Tennessee?
This loss for Tennessee, I think, means that they're not as legit as we thought they were. If you look at their schedule and the results of their games, they could very well be way worse than 5-2. They've won a lot of close games, like how you just said, Will, and how Cincinnati's been on the wrong side of the close games. Tennessee's been on the right side of the close games. Like, they didn't necessarily play well against the Broncos in week 1, nor did they against the Jaguars. Those were just a 2-point win and a 3-point win, respectively. And same thing with the Vikings. They only beat them by 1 in week 3. So they can easily be a way worse football team right now. And I think it's starting to show now that you're not obviously going to win every close game. So now maybe the Titans start to go down a little bit. I mean, they have the Bears next week. They have the Colts the week after and the Ravens after that. So their schedule is definitely going to start to pick up. I personally think they're still going to make the playoffs. Maybe not win the AFC South, but definitely still come in as a wild card team. But I think it just shows that they've been on the right side of close games more than they've been on the wrong side, and now their true colors are starting to show.
Alex, what does this loss mean for the Titans?
And they were off to a good start, And now they're just kind of, like Jacob said, starting to show their true colors. With close games like these, it's literally, it could float in either direction. It's not like they're winning by landslides, or used to be, that being. But I definitely still see them as being somewhere in the playoffs, whether it is being the champion or being a wild card. I think these couple of losses are a minor setback, but they're also a huge lesson, for future games. Close calls can just float either way, like I said. So just to start, I don't know, do better to win. I don't know. And I guess Joe Burrow, is starting to pop up and be, the next big thing. But I never took Cincinnati to be, one of those, massive teams. So I guess for Tennessee, just chalk it up to an experience and hope for the best in the upcoming weeks.
Brendan. Brendan?
Oh, my bad. I hit the mute button for a second. Tennessee, it means that they have to clean up their defense. You just look at their schedule. The close games aren't good enough if you want to be in the AFC Championship or Super Bowl. You can't be giving up 30 points to Minnesota and Jacksonville, narrowly beating Houston the way the Texans are playing this year. They have to clean up their defense. I mean, looking at their depth chart on defense, they have Clowney, they have Malcolm Butler, but then that's about it. I mean, their defensive line is no one to write up about. Their secondary is just as bad as Cleveland's right now. I know defense is down. All defenses are not playing as well this year. Scoring is at an all-time high, I think, this year. But still not a great excuse to lose to a team like Cincinnati. Not especially the week after you lose a close one with Pittsburgh. I mean, I felt like this was almost a must-win for them. And they just flat out did not show up.
Yeah, I think a guy they're really missing right now is Logan Ryan. But I agree. Defense just got to clean things up. And the offense just got to keep chugging. Ryan Tannehill's still having a great year despite the 2-game losing streak. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I agree with Riley. I think the Colts are their only issue. But even after that, I think they're the better team. I think Phillip Rivers is just too old. He put the 1-1-31 for the Browns. So if that says anything, Phillip Rivers just not as great as he once was. So moving on, Dalvin Cook is the man as Minnesota defeats Green Bay 28-22. Green Bay had a little bit of an effort there at the end, but fumble by Aaron Rodgers ended it all. Cook, though, rushes for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns while adding 2 receptions for 63 yards and touchdowns. So all four touchdowns thanks to your Sir Dalvin Cook. Is Minnesota better than their 2-5 record shows? Jacob, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think they're clearly better than their 2-5 record shows. They have a lot of weapons on offense with Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. I think that they'd be much better if Kirk Cousins was playing better in the beginning of the season. He necessarily has not really played all that well this year. So really they're riding Dalvin Cook right now. If they had more consistent play from Kirk Cousins, I definitely think they'd be a lot better because like how I mentioned, he's got targets like Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook in his own way is a good target out of the backfield. So if Kirk Cousins plays more consistent, definitely think the Vikings would have got off to a better start. And I think that they're going to start to pick it up now because if Cousins can turn it around and if Cook obviously keeps playing like this, they're definitely going to turn things around. So, yeah, I mean, it's just if Kirk Cousins ends up playing more consistently, the Vikings will be better, and they should have been better right now.
Alex.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. They are better. They should be better than their 2-5 record right now. I think they're just starting to pop up and gain their wins back from all the losses. I feel like they had a rough start, and maybe just this could be a turning point for the rest of the season for them.
Brendan?
Yeah, I think they are. They played a lot of close games on their schedule. They almost beat Green Bay in Week 1, so they definitely play in division really well. Almost went 2-0 against Green Bay. Almost beat Tennessee. Took Seattle down to the wire. They're definitely good. I mean, Kirk Cousins, I agree with Jacob. He's definitely not been playing as well as he could. Has great targets in Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Cook, obviously. C.J. Ham is a really good fullback. They're just at a point right now. I mean, I think they lost Kevin Stefanski, and that hurt them a little bit. I think that transition with the new offense is a little tough right now for Kirk Cousins, but they're definitely not a 2-5 team. I don't think their record does not show what kind of talent that they have. The loss to Atlanta doesn't help, but I think they're definitely a lot better than what their record shows.
Riley?
I personally don't think that Minnesota's better than what their record shows. I think they have a lot of good pieces, but they have a major problem or multiple major problems on each side of the ball. So on offense, I think Kirk Cousins is a liability at quarterback sometimes. He has shown that he's going to make great decisions one game and then follow up that game with an absolutely horrendous nightmare of a game. And then their offensive line's terrible. Their starting right guard is probably the worst in the NFL, Drew Samia. He can't guard anything. He can't block anything. He's consistently getting leveled by opponents. So that's a bad start on offense, and that limits them a lot. And then if you look at defense, their defensive line is not really an imposing force anymore. They don't have Everson Griffin. They don't have Yannick Ngakoue. They traded those guys. And they also don't have good starting cornerbacks. So I don't think that Minnesota is really a great football team. They have a lot of holes. They don't have any salary cap space. And I think they've also proven once people leave their organization, they play better. Xavier Rhodes was a Pro Bowl cornerback. Once he started playing for them, he got consistently worse. And now he left, and he's having a Pro Bowl season with the Colts. So I just don't really believe in what the Vikings have going on anymore in Minnesota.
And I agree. I think yes, they should be better than 2-5, but the defense is ultimately. You guys are talking about Kirk Cousins. That defense gave up. They lost 40-23 to an Atlanta team that's 2-6. I think it's just all around bad. Now, are they a team that I think could have a strong second half? Yes. But not strong enough to make the postseason. Not at all. You start feeling for guys whose talent's being wasted there, like Dalvin Cook, Thielen, and Jefferson's only a rookie, but you still feel for him, the numbers he's put up just to lose. He had 166 yards in that Falcons loss. To put up those kind of numbers and then still lose by 17. You feel for those guys. And I was kind of surprised to see them say that Thielen will not be dealt at the trade deadline. Try to get something, clear up some room, and give a guy that's performing really well an option with a contender. But it sounds like it's not going to happen. They have till tomorrow at 4 p.m., which we'll get into. But they said it's a no-go now for Thielen offers. So we'll see what they do. But I think 2-5, maybe 3-4 is where I expect them to be at this point in the season, if I had to say so myself. Now Pittsburgh, they remain perfect. They beat Baltimore 28-24. Lamar Jackson throws 2 picks as he continues to show some inconsistencies this season. Since week 1, I don't think he's been the same quarterback. Guys, will the Steelers win the AFC North? Riley, we'll start with you.
Yes, I do think the Steelers will win the AFC North, not so much because of what they offer on offense, but because they are sporting one of the best defenses we've seen in the past, decade in the NFL. That defense is definitely one of the best I've ever seen since I've been watching football as a fan. They constantly twist linemen. They've now gotten their slot cornerbacks involved with the man blitz. If their whole entire defensive line played for different teams, they'd be the star player on each team. So I really think that Pittsburgh offers too much to lose the AFC North. They are just a burden on both sides of the ball. And even as a Browns fan, it hurts me to say that, but Pittsburgh's a pretty good football team.
Brendan.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Their defense playing at a different level right now. Surprised they gave up 24 points to Baltimore. But that defensive line, just when we watched them play against Cleveland, Cam Hayward, Alu, Tuitt, and Watt created havoc for Mayfield, sacked him multiple times. Even their offense, Riley kind of downplayed their offense, but their offense is playing out of their minds too. I love James Conner. I love Deontay Johnson. Roethlisberger obviously is aging, but still can throw the ball with precision and just puts it in those holes that you don't see many old quarterbacks being able to do anymore. I think I'm not saying that they run the table. They'll stumble along the way at least once. I don't know where. But yeah, they'll definitely win the AFC North with ease.
Jacob.
I agree. Their defense is clearly the best in the NFL, maybe one of the best that we've seen in years. They have a lot of offensive weapons with Roethlisberger and Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner. So right there, they're definitely going to do it. But I also think it's partially because of Baltimore. I like how Will pointed out, Lamar's not necessarily being all that consistent this year with his passing. So if he keeps this up, the Ravens, I could see losing some more games due to this, which is just going to open the door even more for the Steelers. And they don't even need the Ravens to really lose games because I personally don't see the Steelers losing many games myself. So I think it's mainly because of the personnel that the Steelers have, yes, but it's also because Lamar's just not the same this year. He's not as consistent, and therefore Steelers are just going to win the North.
Alex.
I honestly think this could play both ways. I mean, you see their record. They're the only undefeated in the NFL. And as everyone has said, their defense especially, absolutely crushing it. And it also hurts as a Browns fan to say that, but they're genuinely good players. Just the thing is, now they're so far into the season and they are undefeated. It's going to come down to, I believe, mentality. It's going to come down to pressure. They can't let their guard down. If they just let their guard down, they might start seeing losses. And especially in the AFC North, you have Baltimore and Cleveland right behind them, both with 5 wins. It's not like, the NFC East where there's huge gaps and a bunch of losses, So I guess it's a little bit of a different situation. So if Pittsburgh can keep it up and just keep doing what they're doing, then I think they can most certainly win. But I just think they can't let their guard down because, like I said, Baltimore and Cleveland are right behind them.
Yeah, and I agree. You can't let your guard down. But like I touched on, Jacob touched on, Lamar Jackson has not been the MVP we saw last season, and obviously the Browns have their inconsistencies, the secondary. But, and by inconsistency, I mean consistently bad. But it's just it's the Steelers' division to lose, I think, now, because they have that 2-game lead and a tiebreaker if Baltimore were to tie it up. So basically a 3-game lead. And I don't think the Bengals I don't think the Browns or Ravens are going to catch them. So I do think the Steelers do win the AFC North. It's because of that defense, and it's because of Roethlisberger's options. Connor, And that receiving core, Juju has a good week one week, Claypool the next week, Johnson, Washington, Ebron finally came up big in last week's game with touchdown. Claypool the rookie added another one late, the game-winning touchdown. It seems like none of these guys are putting up big numbers, but they're all putting up the same numbers, which adds to one big game as a whole offense. And I think it's helping an aging Roethlisberger knowing that he's got 5 targets in the receiving core and then a James Conner to check down to. And I think that's why they're doing so well, because the defense keeps them ahead and the offense puts them ahead. So good for the Steelers as they go to 7-0. Now for the Saints, they take down the Bears in overtime, 26-23. A very good game, a battle of two teams that are playing really good football. Chicago did score 10 points in the final 4 minutes to even things up, but could not hold on in overtime. We saw a fight break out. But which of these two teams do you guys think is more of a contender in the NFC? Jacob, we'll start with you.
Definitely New Orleans for sure. I mean, the fact that they came in and beat Chicago and they don't even have Michael Thomas still, so they're not even fully healthy and they're still playing well. I don't believe in Chicago's offense at all. Nick Foles has done a decent job, but he's not taking the offense over the top. David Montgomery, he does get a lot of touches and he gets a decent amount of yards, but his yards per carry are not very good either at the same time. So I just really don't believe in the Bears' offense enough to say that they're better than the Saints, especially because you got Michael Thomas, and I didn't even mention Emmanuel Sanders didn't even play in this game either. So you're missing so many pieces on offense for the Saints. I think the Saints are only going to get better. The Bears are probably just going to stay about the same. So the Saints are definitely better contenders.
Alex, Saints or Bears? Who's the better contender down the road?
Definitely the Saints are the better contender. 100% agree with everything Jacob said. I feel that they're, especially against Chicago, they're just definitely the better contender.
Okay. Riley?
No more to add. That's really where I stand.
Okay. Brendan?
Yeah, New Orleans. I just don't. Yeah, like Jacob said, Nick Foles is not the real deal. I don't think he's just a backup in the starting position right now. He is the backup, always will be a backup. Plus, New Orleans is not even at full strength yet, like Jacob brought up. Once you bring Michael Thomas back, put him in there with that core group, they'll really start to take off and put themselves in a good position for the NFC seeding.
Yeah, the Saints sitting at 5-2 with the majority of their games, their best receiver on the field probably being Traquan Smith. So good job by them. That just goes to show how good of a quarterback Drew Brees is and how good of a coach Sean Payton is. But I agree. I think we're all four in agreement. The Saints are the better contender when it comes down to it. That if these two were to make the playoffs, the Saints have a better chance at making a run than Chicago, that's for sure. The Saints also have a better chance at winning their division than Chicago, as I think Chicago, 2-game losing streak, I think they're starting to hit their decline now, and this is where the Packers are going to take over. But move on to the trade tracker. Trade deadline ends tomorrow at 4. So far, what's happened in the last 10 days? Vikings send Yannick Ngakoue to the Ravens for a 2021 third-rounder and a 2022 fifth-rounder. The Cowboys send Everson Griffin to the Lions for a 2021 sixth-rounder. Bengals send Carlos Dunlap to the Seahawks for B.J. Finney and a 2021 seventh-rounder. The Jets send Avery Wilson to the Steelers for a 22 fifth-rounder. And that's crazy because Avery Williamson went to bed with a team with 0 losses and woke up on an undefeated team. So kudos to Avery Williamson. For the 49ers, they send K'Wan Alexander to the Saints for Kiko Alonso and the 2021 fifth-rounder. The Chargers send Desmond King this afternoon to the Titans. That's going to be big for the Titans defense, Brendan, for a 2021 sixth-rounder. And other trade rumors stirring around: David Njoku of Cleveland, Xavier Howard, Anthony Harris in Minnesota. John Ross says he wants more time or he wants out of Cincinnati. And then J.J. Watt and Will Fuller are 2 guys in Houston that are being talked about being on the trade market. Guys, so far, have there been any big trade winners, trade losers, or are there any trades that you expect to see done before tomorrow at 4 p.m.? Riley, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll say my trade winner. I definitely think that the Avery Williamson trade, that's big for the Steelers. The rich just keep getting richer in that situation, so you end up losing Devin Bush, and for a 5th-round pick, you add another starting linebacker, and Devin Bush's backup has looked pretty okay. So you're in a win-win-win situation there. And then the biggest trade loser, I would have to say the Vikings absolutely got decimated in the Ngakoue trade. They traded a 2nd and a 5th earlier this year for Yannick Ngakoue before the season started. And not even halfway through the season, you have to accept his dead money onto your books and trade him for a 3rd and a 5th. So not only did you actually lost draft capital and lost salary cap. So just awful exchange of events by Minnesota's front office. I mean, at least you're admitting a mistake early and cutting your losses there. But if you keep making mistakes like that as an organization, your football team's not going to be competitive for very long. And then what trades do I expect before tomorrow at 4 p.m.? I would say I'm expecting the lack of a trade, and that's John Ross. I don't think there's any team that's going to consider him valuable enough to give up any amount of future assets for him. So I think you're going to see John Ross be an NFL free agent by tomorrow's deadline or just after tomorrow's deadline.
Jacob.
Yeah, I agree with Riley on the winners. I definitely think the Steelers won. Like I said, the rich get richer. They get a starting caliber linebacker after losing Devin Bush. I also think the Titans won today, getting Desmond King. That definitely helps their secondary out a lot. Which the loser then, I would say, is the team that traded Desmond King. It's the Chargers. Desmond King's a former All-Pro, and all you get out of him is a 6th-round pick. So that's just extremely disappointing if you're a Chargers fan. And the trades I'm keeping an eye out on, Will Fuller. I think Will Fuller really has a chance to move. A team I really think he can go to is Green Bay, too. They do need wide receivers other than Devontae Adams. So I definitely think Will Fuller could potentially go to Green Bay. And 2 guys that weren't mentioned that are on the Washington football team that I could see potentially getting moved. Dwayne Haskins is a stretch. I don't necessarily think somebody's going to be willing to give up the capital that Washington wants. But I could definitely see the football team trying to search for ways to get rid of him. And Ryan Kerrigan actually doesn't really want to be in Washington right now, which I don't necessarily blame him. He's an incredible player on a really bad team. I could see him going to a team like the Raiders. Maybe John Gruden's willing to go all in. He needs a pass rusher. Ryan Kerrigan can definitely provide that for him. So I really think that Ryan Kerrigan could be on the move to a team like Las Vegas that definitely needs a pass rusher like that. But, yeah, I also almost said John Ross could get dealt because of the way Carlos Dunlap forced his way out of Cincinnati. But I agree with Riley. Nobody's going to want to take a chance on John Ross, so I think he'll be a free agent tomorrow as well.
I was thinking the Ryan Kerrigan pick with you, Jacob, but Washington just announced that they're not shopping him. He's untouchable. So
oh, wow.
I won't unless something changes while they all sleep at night. I don't know if Kerrigan will be moving. But again, that's all he say, she say. That could be a bluff. So that's going to be interesting to see how Kerrigan plays out, whether his tenure's over in Washington or if he just has to suck it up and finish the back half of the season with the football team. But Brendan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everyone about Avery Williamson going to Pittsburgh. That's huge for the Steelers. Also a big win, the Seahawks getting Carlos Dunlap. That will help them a lot as well. Cowboys lost big, getting rid of Everson Griffin. That already bad defense gets even worse. And the dumpster fire that is Dallas continues to burn in a Jerry world. Which is personally I love to see. What I'm expecting for tomorrow, not a whole lot. I don't think Njoku goes anywhere. With OBJ gone now, Stefanski needs his tight ends now more than ever. Xavier Howard, Dolphins asking a lot for him. I just don't think that plays out. I could see Will Fuller moving, like Jacob said, but those other guys, J.J. Watt stays, so is Ross. It might not be as big a trade deadline, as loud a trade deadline as one might expect.
Alex, your thoughts on the trade tracker?
I think it's unanimous that Avery Williamson going to the Steelers is a huge, huge, huge win. It's just like everyone said, the rich getting richer. I mean, the future looks untouchable for the Steelers, especially now. But another team, I guess, trade that I want to look at more is the 49ers sending Alexander to the Saints, because I feel like this trade might just make the Saints stronger. So I feel like it's going to be very interesting to keep their eye out on this trade especially.
And I'm going to agree with you guys. Avery Williamson, a big not only are the Steelers a winner, but he's a winner. He got out of terrible organization, terrible coaching staff, and is now with Mike Tomlin, who's been doing it for a long time, and a team that's 7-0. So good for him. I agree with you.
Did you see the picture you put on Instagram?
Yeah, the thumbs up standing on the sidewalk with the umbrella in New York City. And his full-blown uniform. I love that.
I don't know how he got to do that, but that's awesome.
But Chargers or the Titans win big with Desmond King, I think. And I think the Saints are winners too with K1 Alexander. I think Kiko Alonso, you can tell he's aging. He's not the same linebacker he used to be. And I think they won that trade with the 49ers. And then the Ravens with Ngakoue are also big winners. Losers, everyone who traded something on this list. It seems like everybody who traded someone on this list got nothing in return. So I'm going to say they're all big losers. And by tomorrow, I don't expect much to happen like you guys said. Will Fuller's really the only one I could see because things have been heating up in the past couple of days. Njoku, yes, there was trade rumors early on, but he's denied them. And with Odell going down, maybe the Browns reach out for a receiver. I doubt it, though, with Landry and Higgins and the tight end room they have.
Browns have to go for someone on defense, but
I was going to say Anthony Harris.
Not hearing anything like that.
Yeah, I was going to say Anthony Harris of Minnesota is the guy that I could see the Browns maybe reaching out after. But ever since the Thielen trade talks have died, so have the Harris trade talks with Cleveland. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 19 hours. We're going to keep track of it, and we'll see. And next week we'll probably be talking about it, who's going where. So now looking at the division standings, the current leaders, the AFC East, Buffalo, AFC North, Pittsburgh, AFC South, Tennessee, AFC West, Kansas City, NFC East, Philadelphia gaining on their lead, and the NFC North, we've got Green Bay, and the NFC South, New Orleans, and in the NFC West, Seattle. Guys, so far, who is the biggest surprise halfway through the season? Which leader could you see falling off? Or is there a middle in the second half of the season, or is there a middle of pack or dweller right now that you could see having a huge second half comeback? Brendan, we'll start with you.
Well, as far as the division leaders go, not too many surprises.
No.
In my opinion. Obviously, we're still all surprised at what the NFC East has been able to produce. But I mean, I'm surprised Miami is ahead of New England right now. Now that they have Tua as their starter, pretty surprised that Indianapolis has been able to hold on for enough wins to be at 5-2. Also, I would think, and unanimously surprised that Cleveland is 5-3. Falling off in the second half. Could be Buffalo, but I mean that's just a guess for me. I don't see really any leader falling off. Philadelphia can't fall off any more than they already have, and I definitely am expecting Las Vegas to have a little better second half than they have had in the first half to come up and compete for one of those wild card spots in the AFC.
Alex.
All right. Couple of surprises that I found with the division standings. First, I think we can all agree. I'm very surprised Cleveland is doing very well with 5 wins. Hopefully they can keep it up and get many more. And New England too. I think we touched on it earlier, but I think it's a huge surprise that they're just having an off season, which I know they called it from the beginning that they're just going to treat this as their just off season and try to take a better comeback for another one, like the next year. But I think just to see them with so few wins, it's something you almost never associate with New England. So I think that is definitely another surprise there. But kind of as far as the leaders, not too surprised with any of them. Again, falling off for the second half, again, I would say Philadelphia, but they've already fallen off so much. And there's no one else, I think, to catch up to them. I think the whole division, unfortunately, is struggling a little bit. And as far as someone who can have a huge comeback, I'm not honestly so sure. I'd have to agree. Las Vegas, I was expecting a little bit more from them for the first half, so I'm hoping they can make it up in the second half. But, yeah, as far as that, those are my standings.
Jacob.
Yeah, so my surprise personally is the Arizona Cardinals, as good as they're doing. I know that they acquired DeAndre Hopkins, so obviously they were going to get better, but I didn't expect them to make this big of a leap this quick in the Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury experiment. So they're definitely a surprise. I'm also obviously surprised with how bad Dallas is, with the amount of talent they've had. Obviously the injuries are going to play a factor in that. And also New England, just because you have Bill Belichick there, I really thought that he would have had the team better prepared, even though the roster's not necessarily all that good. The leaders I see falling off, I think Buffalo, if their offense really keeps being as bad as it has been the past 3 weeks, I really think that they can fall off, and I can see the Dolphins really catching up to them potentially. But that's definitely a stretch. I can also see Tennessee potentially falling off because I really do believe in the Colts, and I think the Colts can continue to win, and I think that the Titans might start to lose some of these close games that they have been winning, so I think the Colts can catch them there. And middle of the pack, I too agree with the Raiders, but just to change things up, not saying this team's making the playoffs at all because I really don't think they are, but when you have Deshaun Watson on your roster, I'd like to think that the Texans are going to have a better second half of the season than what they have now at 1-6. I mean, like I said, they're not going to make the playoffs. Maybe 6-10 record could be a bit of a stretch, but they're definitely not going to be 1-6. I don't think the second half of the season with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. But if we're talking about a team that definitely has a shot at making the playoffs, it's definitely the Raiders because I believe in Derek Carr, I believe in Josh Jacobs, and I think the Raiders can definitely make that push for the playoffs.
Riley?
Biggest surprise halfway through the season for me is Houston sitting at 1-6. I mean, I expected them to regress after trading DeAndre Hopkins and the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals ever. But yeah, with Deshaun Watson as your quarterback, I really don't think that your football team has any business being 1-6. Deshaun Watson, if he's healthy and put in a good situation to succeed, I think he's instantly a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. So that one just has me stunned a little bit. I didn't think that it was going to be as bad as it was. I thought they were looking at like a 7-9 season, and they're already 3 losses away from hitting the 9-loss column. Mm-hmm. Which leader could I see falling off in the second half? I could definitely see Chicago starting to choke down the second half and wither away their wild card playoff hopes. And then who in the middle pack do I think could have a big comeback? I would have said San Francisco yesterday night, not knowing like all of the injuries that they were going to have. But personally, I think if you're looking at a team that has a shot at competing for a wild card, if the Lions start winning some of their close games, they are going to be in a position where I think they could fight for a wild card at like 9-7 in the NFC, and that'd be sneaking in. They'd have to have some things go their way, but if you're looking at the Lions, they lose close games. They lost close to the Bears. They lost close to the Saints. If they're able to close these out and Matt Patricia's trying to save his job, they might be able to sneak into the wild card conversation. I could see them making a huge comeback.
Yeah, and my biggest surprise so far, definitely New England. I didn't think they'd be 2-5. I didn't know if they'd be above 500 or at 500, but I didn't think they'd be 2-5. Houston, I agree with that one, 1-6. The AFC East is kind of a whole surprise to me. I didn't think it'd be this bad. Other than that, everything's really shaping up to what I expected. I thought the Cardinals would finish over 500. 5-2 is a better start than anticipated, but still thought they'd be a pretty good team after getting Hopkins. A leader I could see falling off, definitely Buffalo, just because the inconsistencies they shown in the last couple of weeks. Indianapolis is on the tails of Tennessee, so maybe them. I agree with Riley. Chicago, I don't think is a playoff team. I think they fall out here in the second half. I think Los Angeles Rams do too. I think they're 5-3 with a very, very easy schedule thus far, and the second half is expected to be very tough on them. And I think they maybe fall out, maybe finish around 8-8, have a flip second half, go 3-5. Now looking at who I'm looking forward to seeing, maybe how a huge second half comeback. I'm looking forward to seeing the AFC West in general. I think it's Kansas City's division, but I think Vegas, Denver, and LA all have talent and can have really good second halves. Herbert, he's balling out right now. Denver was expected to be better, but injuries have riddled them with a few losses. It's going to be interesting to see what these three teams do battling out for second place in this division. I don't think LA is out of it, even though they're 2-5, because I think with Herbert, they can go on a run. It's just the defense needs to help them. Now, losing Desmond King is definitely a big hit on that defense today, but it's going to be interesting to see what Herbert can do. But other than that, I don't see much changing. It's going to be interesting to see if Arizona can catch Seattle. They did beat them once. They do play again. Maybe they do catch them. It's going to be interesting to see who wins that division. But moving in to the next spot here, Week 9 is already upon us. Guys, you have listed out in front of you the games coming up next week. What's your favorite matchup? Why? Who's winning? Riley, we'll start with you.
This is a tough week to choose a best matchup because I think there are a lot of one-sided games and there are also a lot of really competitive football games.
Mm-hmm.
But, you were just speaking about the AFC West. I do think that there's some proving ground for who's the second best football team in that division. Obviously, number one is going to be the Chiefs, but I personally think that Vegas has the second best team in that division, and they're given an opportunity to show that playing the Chargers. The Chargers just lost on the final second to Denver last night, so there's a lot to prove there. I think Vegas and the Chargers is the game to watch this week.
Okay. Jacob.
For me, I'm going with Baltimore and Indianapolis. I think it's going to be a good test for both. We're going to see if the Colts are legit or not in the AFC, and we're definitely going to see if Lamar can have a bounce-back game from really a poor performance against the Steelers. And it's really going to be a good test for Lamar, too, knowing that the Colts' defense is what it is. It might be the second-best defense to the Steelers. So Lamar's definitely not going to have it easy. We're going to see if the Ravens can battle back and if they are legit in the AFC as well as if the Colts are legit in the AFC.
Brendan.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Seahawks and Bills. Can Josh Allen play up? And with Russell Wilson, it'll be a fun matchup to watch. 6-1 against 6-2. Agreed. Baltimore and Indianapolis should be a good one to watch. So should Chicago and Tennessee. There's just a handful of good opponents facing each other, but then there's just a lot of lopsided games. I don't think we ever would have expected a 2-5 Patriots team to face off against an 0-7 Jets. If the Patriots lose that one, then that's
bad,
sad. But yeah, I wouldn't say a great week as far as matchups go, but there are some marquee ones to watch. Interesting ones to watch.
Alex?
I kind of agree with what everyone said. As far as the matchups for the weeks, there's either really, really competitive pairs, or you have the Patriots and the Jets, which is like Brendan said, if the Patriots lose that, then that's just added fuel to the fire. That's really bad, I believe. I I would be interested to see what the Browns do this week against the Texans because, I don't know, potentially another win for them, maybe so. But, yeah, I think as far as other teams
Browns-Texans is
go,
actually next week.
next week? The
Yeah.
15th, right? Wait,
Yeah.
what is this week? Oh my god, I forgot today was the 2nd.
Yeah, this week's their bye.
I'm so sorry. I'm thinking today's the 9th or whatever. I don't know. My timing's all off. But anyway, yes,
All
for
good.
next week, the Texans against the Jaguars. That would be interesting to see because they both have the same matchup. But I don't know what will come out of that. But definitely agreeing on the fact that there are some really competitive teams and some that are just not them in the slightest.
Yeah, if you're the Jaguars, you want to lose that game because you need a quarterback more than Houston. But my marquee matchup next week, Saints-Buccaneers. Saints win round 1, 34-23. Both teams 5-2 right now, but the Buccaneers play tonight against the Giants. They're playing right now as we speak, actually. So that record will change, obviously, before next week's game. But it's going to be interesting to see can Breeze take the 2-0 lead on the season series, or does Brady get revenge at home? And it's all obviously going to have great implications on who wins the division with their records being so close. So that's my game of the week next week. And that will do it for us for NFL Talk. It is now last call. So what that means is we're going to have some fun questions to end it off on. And Alex, we'll start with you. When is the right time to put up your Christmas tree decorations and start listening to music? Yesterday or after Thanksgiving?
Oh boy. Okay, I'm always the kind of person who will start the Christmas stuff November 1st. I just am. I know many people aren't. I'm so glad you agree.
Yes.
Well, I am always the type. No, the clock will strike midnight on Halloween. I'll bust out all my Christmas playlists. I just will. I was watching Christmas movies today.
Yes.
I feel like especially this year with all the bad stuff going on, you need that joy. You need it early. So I'll take Christmas as long as I can take it.
Jacob, I'm going to go to you after seeing how you reacted.
You know,
I'm
at the
so
Butar
sorry.
household, we have the tradition, and it's Black Friday. We put the Christmas tree up, so that's how it should be. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays because I'm a huge eater, so Thanksgiving needs the respect. So I don't celebrate Christmas until after Thanksgiving.
Okay. Brendan?
Yeah, Christmas is my favorite holiday. I've already started listening to some music already.
Yes.
The past couple days. My family does wait for the Christmas tree. We do put it up Black Friday because we host Thanksgiving every year, so we don't want to mix the two holidays. Give Thanksgiving some love. But yeah, I'm all in on listening to Christmas music. It helps get me through the end of the semester, especially this year. So I'm all in.
And Riley?
There's a special and select elite club of people who celebrate Thanksgiving that are aboard what's called the Gravy Train. And if you really want to be a key member of the Gravy Train, you have to wait until after Thanksgiving to put your tree up. I don't make the rules. I'm just a member of the Gravy Train, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
So I am a November 1st kind of person. My significant other, however, is not. She's the Scrooge. She's the Scrooge. She's on the Gravy Train, Riley. She just told me Gravy Train. She's saying choo-choo right now, so she's with you. But due to our house
right there.
Due to our house closing being delayed, we're not going to be able to put the tree up and stuff until after Thanksgiving. So this year, I'm on the Gravy Train, but every other year, I'm a November 1st kind of guy. But
You don't pick the Gravy Train year by year. The Gravy Train picks you.
I was waiting for you to say that. Oh, all right. So we have 3 versus 2. Christmas has already started, baby. All right. So last night, though, we get snow. We got snow on November 1st. We wake up, the ground's covered. It got warm throughout the day, so it melted. But the ground's covered here in Alliance, Ohio when we wake up. Quick answer, guys. Pro snow or anti-snow? Brendan.
Anti-snow when it gets too dangerous to drive.
Okay.
And you gotta like shake your boots off to get into the car, or unless the whole car is wet. Like the snow that we got today, that's perfect. Like the flakes, and it's like not a blizzard. Like that's perfect snow for me. I don't do the blizzard of 1955 or whatever like that, where you can't drive. You get locked inside your house. That's too much for me. I'm just a little bit of snow is perfect. It makes me feel all warm inside, so I love
Cold
it.
outside. Alex.
Okay, dang, all right.
No, I'm saying like it's cold outside when it snows, not you. It makes you feel warm inside because of like the Christmas feel, but
I don't know. You've been on my butt today, so
it's because you hate BYU and Cincinnati. All right, Alex, anti-snow or pro-snow?
Okay, there is a time and a place for snow, I believe. Like Brendan said, it gives you the warm, cozy feeling, especially around Christmas. You get cozy by the fire, wrapped up in a blanket. So I'd say like November, December, it's perfect like for snow. Maybe even January because you get a snow day. I'd say that pre-COVID because now that everything's online, there probably is no such thing as snow days. But anything after that is no. Like this past year, my birthday's in May. And there was a blizzard on my birthday. Like, that's just unacceptable.
You don't like
but then
April
again,
snow showers?
What was that?
You don't like April snow showers?
No. In April, okay, I'm a golfer. In April, I'm expecting some warm weather so I could bust out my clubs outside after long winter. You know, there's a time and a place. I mean, I don't know. For me, I'm a kind of a November to January for snow. But after that, I'm ready for
you like
some
the
warm
traditional
weather.
winter season. I gotcha. Riley.
Personally, I'm definitely a snow lover. I'm a snow-loving guy, and I can go for the snow any time of the year. Winter is probably my favorite season. I definitely like putting on the thick socks, putting on the long johns, and bundling up and going for a walk out in the cold, throwing snowballs. It's my favorite time of the year for sure.
Sports team snowball fight will immense at some point before we all head home. Jacob, pro snow, anti snow.
I am a huge anti-snow.
Oh, he's not
anybody
invited.
that lives in Northeast Ohio, you know how bad it is to drive in the snow. So that is why I hate it. I hate waking up in the morning and seeing snow on my car and being like, ugh, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. I got to go wipe all the snow off my car. So me and snow just do not have a good relationship whatsoever.
We will have a snowball fight. Jacob's pending invitation.
I love the grind. A lot of people don't like driving in the snow, but I love the grind of driving in the snow. Like,
no
no days off for Riley.
You have to be extra attentive. You have to be a skilled driver. If something happens, you have to be able to recover. And then my favorite thing is what?
You have to put your phone down.
Yeah, well, I don't mind that. I really enjoy driving, and I delivered pizza in the snow, so I just like driving in the snow. Most people aren't good at it, and I like to think that I am, so I enjoy it.
Is that a part of being on the gravy train, is being good at driving in the snow?
No, I just probably drive way more than most people my age. I really like driving. Most people don't.
I do too. Now, last question before we depart. It's winter season. What are you wearing? A hoodie / sweater or a winter coat? Riley, I'll start with you since it's your favorite season.
I'm a big winter coat guy. I think it's a -40 or -50 degree winter coat that I bought at Gander Mountain when they were on their closing sale. And it's the best jacket I've ever owned in my life. So I'm a huge winter coat guy.
All right, Brendan, you look astonished. We'll go your way.
No, -40, that I don't want to imagine that. Although I will point out it is supposed to be 70 degrees a week from today, so you can't put away your winter jacket for a season. You got to just keep it out and handy when you're living in Ohio. But no, I layer. I don't like bulky jackets and bulky clothes to begin with, so I'll wear a long sleeve t-shirt with a hoodie over it, and that does me pretty well.
Jacob?
Nothing against winter jackets. They're really nice, but I agree with Brendan. Hoodies are just like the most comfortable clothing to me. I can fall asleep in them like at any given time, so I am just a huge hoodie guy.
Alex?
I am definitely a sweater and scarf kind of girl. I have a huge collection going on with both of those. But if I'm having a snowball fight, then I'm busting out the winter coat.
Okay. Riley over here is just upset with this whole crew.
Yeah, I feel like winter coats are one of those things where everyone says that they don't like them until you get a winter coat that's perfect for you. Because you guys were like, oh, well, I can fall asleep in my my sweatshirt for sure. I've been in a tree stand, and I've fallen asleep in my winter coat, no problem. So, like, you got to try it. You guys got to try it.
I don't know if I'll try that, but I'll remember to consider trying it. But no, Riley, you're going to be mad at all four of us because I am also a hoodie sweater guy. I think you're probably going to be really mad at me for saying this, but I think you have more room for fashion with a hoodie or sweater as well. I feel like he's going to turn his mic out. Did he just leave? But I like hoodies or sweaters as well. I can fall asleep. I actually just before this podcast took a nap in my hoodie right here. So Riley, I'm sorry. I hope we can still be friends. I do love the winter season if that makes you feel better.
I'll say this: below 40s, I gotta break out the winter jacket. Like I'm not. Is that the minus 41?
Yes, that's my very thick, nice winter jacket, and quite honestly, it's all I needed during this cold winter season. Forget you guys, winter jackets are too good anyways.
But no, I agree. I wear shorts in the winter until it hits like a point of like 10 degrees or under. So you guys are probably really gonna think I'm really crazy. But today I wore jeans. I don't know. I was feeling bougie, so I threw on a pair of jeans. But Riley knows. We went to the last 10 high school broadcasts, and despite it being like 20 degrees the last 4 weeks, I wore khaki shorts. So I'm definitely warm-blooded, I guess. But
you have a different body temperature for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's it for episode 2. We thank everyone that listened. For Jacob Butar, Brendan Devaney, Alexandria Petrone, Riley Sullivan, I'm Will Brienza. We'll be back next Monday for episode 3 of RaiderZone, the podcast. Have a great night, everybody.